Games that truly take advantage of the hardware they're played on are few and far between, making it even more rewarding when a developer has the ingenuity to pull it off smoothly. Consoles like the Nintendo DS have dual screens, a touchpad, and a microphone, all of which allow for countless unique control possibilities, yet most developers only take real advantage of the touchpad. Then, we have developers like Sing. Who else would come up with a game like Hotel Dusk, where you rotate the DS on its side like a book, allowing you to use it for both puzzle solving and note-taking in a mystery puzzle game? They literally have puzzles where you have to close the DS to move something from the top screen to the bottom screen. How cool is that? But while Hotel Dusk is one of my favorite games of all time, it wasn't the first time that Sing tried to make a game that would only work on the DS. That would be Another Code 2 Memories. Released 2 years earlier in 2005, Another Code is a mystery puzzle game where you take the role of 13-year-old Ashley Robbins as she explores Blood Edward Island in search of her father. It received mixed reviews, but performed well enough to get a sequel on the Wii. Unfortunately, the sequel was never released in North America due to poor sales, and before it ever could be, Sing went out of business. That was it for Another Code until 15 years later. In 2024, Arc System Works had acquired the rights to Another Code, publishing a full, ground-up remake for the Nintendo Switch. 3D assets, voice acting, reworked puzzles, and an adjusted narrative to try and streamline the story. They changed enough about the plot that the collective runtime for both games was reduced by 5 hours. Today, I'm going to be taking a look at all 3 of these games: the original Another Code, its sequel, and the collected remake of both. 2 Memories opens up to a confusing cutscene. It's a mishmash of text, dates, and illustrations that move by far too quickly, but thankfully none of it is all that important. Everything they alluded to in that cutscene will be explored fully during the game's actual runtime. It kinda just acts as more of a teaser. You may notice that the title screen reads Trace Memory instead of Another Code 2 Memories. This is because I'm playing the North American release, which has a completely different name and translation than the European release. I'll discuss the translation changes in more detail as they become relevant. The game opens with a monologue from Ashley Robbins. It's the day before her 14th birthday and she's on a boat headed for Blood Edward Island. Her reason? She's just found out that her father is alive after believing him to be dead for 11 years. As they approach the island, Ashley is called up to the deck by the captain, rousing her from a nap. We zoom in on Ashley's hand, noting that she's holding a DS. Well, kind of. In this game, this is known as the DTS or Dual Trace system. She received it in the mail several days ago alongside a letter from her father proclaiming that he would like to see her for her 14th birthday. This device is biometrically locked to Ashley and can only be used after you've scanned her fingerprint. The game actually simulates this by having you place your own fingerprint on the bottom screen of the DS. It's pretty cool. I like the concept behind implementing a mysterious piece of technology that mirrors the appearance of the console you use to play the game. It's a smart way to immerse the player, and they definitely get their mileage out of it when it comes to puzzles. 2 Memories is very graphically rudimentary, at least when it comes to the 3D models. They show their age, but they aren't necessarily bad looking. The game takes place predominantly from a top-down view, with the bottom screen displaying models of the characters and environments, while the top screen shows 2D illustrations of the same locations. All the 2D artwork was created by Taisuke Kanasaki, and it looks incredible. He was also the mastermind behind the art in both Hotel Dusk and its sequel, which is seriously some of my favorite video game artwork of all time. Not only that, he was the director for all 4 of these games, both Another Codes and both Kyle Hyde games. Talk about serious talent. During the final leg of the journey, Ashley is given some time to talk to her aunt Jessica, who accompanied her on this trip. Jessica has been acting as a parental figure for her ever since the death of her parents. Or I guess the presumed death of her parents. Now that her father has shown up out of nowhere, who knows what her family situation is looking like? Jessica can tell that something is wrong. Apparently Ashley has a reoccurring nightmare about the night she lost her parents. While Jessica suspects that it's just a bad dream, Ashley is convinced that it's a real memory. They don't really show us the dream yet, we only got a small glimpse of it during the nap at the very start of the game. The clearest image was of a little baby version of Ashley sitting in a closet. Ashley reflects on her relationship with Jessica. She's a high school chemistry teacher, kind, smart, and overall just a good parent. But she knew that Ashley's father was alive this entire time and never said a word. According to Jessica, 10 years ago, Richard showed up on her doorstep with a baby Ashley in his arms. He asked her to take care of her, but not to ask any further questions, promising to return one day, hopefully soon. He made her promise not to reveal that he was alive before disappearing. Jessica hasn't heard from him since. Supposedly, Richard Robbins is an incredibly talented scientist. He's probably the one who invented the DTS. Both he and his wife Sayako were working at a research lab that specialized in the study of memories until their supposed deaths. Ashley starts playing around with the DTS, discovering a camera feature and accidentally snapping a photo of Jessica. This is actually a really useful feature for puzzles. If you ever need to remember something, it's wise to snap a picture of it, as the game will often put relevant photos on the top screen of the DS if you have them on your memory card. The captain docks the boat with Ashley and Jessica stepping onto the pier. He makes it very clear that he'll be departing before nightfall with or without them. No one seems to be here, let alone Richard, so Jessica heads off to search for him. In the meantime, Ashley speaks with the captain, who gives her some history on Blood Edward Island. Very few people have come here. The last time he was here was to escort a tall blonde man who sounds very similar to Ashley's father. The island itself was owned by a rich family known as the Edwards, but at some point the family members quickly began to die, one by one. That's why it's called Blood Edward Island. That's a pretty cheesy name, but I guess it gets the point across. They continue their conversation for a short while, with the captain telling Ashley not to become the type of boring adult who doesn't ask questions. Speaking of questions, shouldn't Jessica be back by now? Where is she? Ashley leaves in search of her, stepping off the dock and onto the island. Movement is pretty straightforward. You can either drag your stylus around and have Ashley follow it, or you can use the D-pad. Most of the environments are fairly empty and not worth exploring. If you ever find something you actually need to pay attention to, this magnifying glass button will glow orange. Pressing it will take you to a screen full of nearby objects to examine. Ashley quickly stumbles across a bridge, but before she can cross it, a scream can be heard in the distance. A scream belonging to Jessica. Ashley runs towards the noise, but the bridge suddenly raises, introducing our first puzzle. To turn the crank. The hardest part about this puzzle is the hitboxes. It's so specific. Even if you're a little bit off center, the crank will not turn. But ultimately, the puzzle is still turn the crank. With the bridge lowered, Ashley sprints through the woods, calling out for Jessica. She stumbles into a locked iron gate and a broken sign. The sign is repaired easily enough, but the device used to unlock the gate is missing a gear. As she looks around for a replacement, Ashley finds herself in the Edward family graveyard, where the only two legible graves are those of Thomas and Henry Edward, both of whom died in 1948. There's a hole in the wall that may lead to another entrance to the house, but it's blocked by a giant slab of stone. Thankfully, Ashley is shredded, so she effortlessly moves it aside in one fell swoop. I wish. She can move it, but it takes ages. You have to swipe the stone out of the way from the left edge, and half the time the game doesn't even recognize your input. Even when it does, she only moves it a tiny bit at a time, making it a really tedious task. Once the stone is finally out of the way, it falls down, revealing the letter D carved into the back. As she examines it, a voice calls out, asking her to state her purpose. Ashley looks up, finding herself face to face with the ghost of a young boy. He's overjoyed that she's responding to him. He's been waiting 57 years to meet someone who can actually see him. Only those of pure heart and mind can see ghosts like this. He introduces himself as D and reassures Ashley that the rock she pushed over wasn't his grave. It just so happens to be semi-grave shaped and have his name on it, I guess? D has no memories from before his death. He doesn't even know how he died. All he can remember is that his name is D and that the marking on his chest is the last thing he saw before his death. Because of this, he can't move on. But now he's finally met someone who can see him, someone who can help him figure out who he was. Ashley wants to help D, but it's also important that she finds her father and aunt. Plus, if she takes too long, the captain will head home and they'll be stranded here. D, presumably using some kind of ghostly ability, is able to hear Ashley's thoughts. Learning about the situation with her father jogs a memory of his own. We see a flash of a hand holding a gun before D disappears entirely. Ashley begins to search for him, finding nothing but an old mine shaft on the other side of the graveyard. She finds a gear in a toolbox, taking it back to the locked front gate and inserting it into the mechanism. Behind the newly unlocked gate, Ashley stumbles upon a small building with the door cracked open. Jessica's glasses are strewn on the floor outside, prompting her to go in and explore. While she's unable to find any other clues as to Jessica's whereabouts, she does find a card that can be inserted into the DTS. The card contains a message from her father. He apologizes for not picking her up at the dock, claiming that he's finally finished work on something called Trace. He claims to be waiting for her inside the mansion beyond the second gate. Next to the card, Ashley finds the cover sheet of a research paper being worked on by both of her parents. It seems as though they were working on this Trace project together. Upon stepping back outside, D reappears. He tells Ashley about the memories he regained. Apparently his father died when he was just a boy, and it happened inside the mansion beyond the gate. The same mansion where his childhood friend Frannie used to live. Frannie was the one who gave him the nickname D. Ashley needs to get into the mansion to search for her father, and D needs to get into the mansion in the hopes of resurfacing more memories. With a common goal, the two decide to team up in the hopes of helping each other out. This leads us to our next puzzle, which introduces a very frustrating mechanic that is unfortunately very common in puzzle games. This gate has two statues of hands, one on each side. The one on the left is grasping a metal ball, while the one on the right is not. You need to grab the correctly sized metal ball and toss it up to the empty hand, activating a lever and opening the gate. This is a totally fine puzzle in concept, except for one major issue. Earlier, I found this crate full of metal balls, and I wasn't allowed to take any of them. When I looked at the gate and saw the hand, I still wasn't allowed to take any of the balls. When I zoomed in on the empty hand, yet again, I couldn't take anything. It was pretty clear at this point that I needed to put one of the balls in this hand, but the game just would not let me do it. Why? Well, it's simple. I didn't examine the hand while zoomed in twice to unlock a dialogue option where Ashley observes out loud that the hand is empty. Yeah, I could see that it was empty. That's right, this is one of those games. Even if you've already figured out how to solve a puzzle, if you didn't do it in the exact order and way that the game wants you to do it, it will physically bar you from solving the puzzle, forcing you to try and reverse engineer what you're supposed to examine to be allowed to interact with all the components in question. This in turn leads to a lot of irritating backtracking. I often found myself examining items without being able to pick them up, only to find that 2 chapters later I had to sprint 15 rooms back to grab it for a puzzle. I don't get why games like this don't allow you to take items of interest as soon as you find them. If you find something that needs to be used in a puzzle, you should be allowed to take it right then and there. Why waste the player's time by instigating these hyper-specific rules? Ashley tosses the metal ball into the slot, unlocking the gate and giving us access to the mansion. But before we can walk through the gate, the game ends the chapter by making the player do a recap. This is very similar to Hotel Dusk, where Ashley will go over all the important information she learned during the chapter to make sure that the important plot points are being retained by the player. Most of the time, this is a really good thing. It's a clever way of making sure I know what's important and what isn't. Unfortunately, sometimes they step over the line and include some random garbage. Oh, you picked up 3 books this chapter? What was the letter on the front of the last one you picked up? These are thankfully few and far between, but they're definitely worth mentioning. On the way to the front door, more memories come back to Dee. He remembers that he and his father were visiting this house because his father grew up here. He received a letter in the mail one day, and for some reason it prompted him to return home. Unfortunately, the memories stop there. Inside the mansion, Richard is still nowhere to be seen. We are immediately blocked off again by another door. This one requires a code that you can learn by looking at these 2 paintings of birds. I was able to take pictures of them so I could have one on each screen. If you try and mentally merge the 2 images, you can see that the scraps of the lines and the numbers are Roman numerals, telling you what order to type the numbers in. Down the next hall, Dee gets freaked out by a painting at the end, thinking that it's a person. Upon closer inspection, he realizes that it's a painting of his great-grandfather Lawrence Edward, meaning that Dee belongs to the Edward family. Some piano music can be heard in a nearby room, but we haven't seen anybody in the house yet. What if it's Richard? Ashley begins to search around, finding herself in the butler's quarters. A notepad sits on the desk with the top sheet torn off, so Ashley runs graphite over it to reveal the indent. Bill will come. What the hell does that mean? Near the notepad is another card for the DTS with another message from Richard. Apparently he's moved to a room deep inside the mansion for some reason, but once Ashley makes her way there, he'll fully explain Trace and what happened to her mother. I'm really curious to find out why Richard keeps running away. He has enough time to leave notes for his daughter on these high-tech cards, but he doesn't have time to go grab her real quick? It's just weird. There are 3 wardrobes with some items inside nearby. One has a letter from Dee's grandfather to Dee's great-grandfather. His grandfather pursued a career as a musician against his father's wishes, and he found success. He married and had 2 kids, living out his days happily. Apparently, he wants to come visit soon. Or he did back in the 40s. The second wardrobe has a photo album containing pictures of 2 boys, Henry and Thomas. Those were the names on the graves outside. Henry grew up to become an artist, while Thomas grew up to become a novelist. The final wardrobe has quite a few items, the most immediately helpful being a family tree. With this final confirmation, we know that one of these unnamed babies has to be Dee, with the other most likely being his friend Frannie. It also contains the butler's diary, telling us more of the Edward family history. To avoid confusion, I'm going to throw up this family tree whenever I'm talking about them. Time for a quick summary. Lawrence had a son named Leonard who had 2 children, Henry and Thomas. Leonard passed away of an illness at a young age, with Lawrence taking the role of raising Henry and Thomas. They both went into careers in the arts before being drafted into World War II. Thankfully, both returned alive. That's all this room has to offer, so Ashley moves across the hall, finding the music room. A piano sits in the back, but the room remains devoid of any other people. There are papers scattered across the floor, excerpts from the research paper about Trace. It reinforces the idea that Trace is a project involving memories in some way, but that's about it. A nearby bookshelf contains several white books with letters and symbols on the spine. A matching set of symbols can be found on the keys of the piano. The sight of these jogs another memory in D. When he was a kid, his father taught him that playing a secret melody on the piano could make hidden doors appear. Unfortunately, the memory requires all the books to be found. Ashley finds these books scattered throughout the front of the mansion, including in the rooms that Henry and Thomas used to occupy. One of the rooms contains a rug stained with blood, which jogs another memory inside of D. His father didn't just die in this mansion. D watched his father get murdered in this mansion by a man in a black sweater. With all the books in hand, Ashley organizes them, using the letters at the bottom to spell the names Henry and Thomas. Playing the notes on the piano in the order on the spines opens a hidden doorway beside the bookshelf. The secret door leads to another hall of several doors. Before they can make much headway, D is hit with another memory, taking them to the nearby art studio. Frannie's father was an artist, and we get to see this really well done drawing of what she looked like back when D knew her. D now remembers that Henry was his uncle, meaning Frannie was his cousin and Thomas was his father. I really hope I've explained this somewhat competently. I really struggle to verbally explain family trees. I tried making a video on The Root Trees Are Dead, which is a game all about solving mysteries to assemble the family tree of a famous family using early age internet to research. But I got so tangled up trying to explain everything that it had to be shelved. Good game though, would recommend. In the corner of the studio, Ashley finds another DTS card, inserting it into her device and reading yet another message from her father. It's basically the same thing as always. Your Richard is in another castle. This one does at least tell us that the room deep in the mansion that we're supposed to be looking for is the lab, so that's something. Next to this card is a drawing that Richard made. He's actually pretty talented. On the left is a drawing of Ashley as a baby, and on the right is a drawing of what he imagines she may look like now. It might be more accurate if Ashley were like 16, but a decade is a long time to not see your child, so it makes sense that he may overestimate her aging visually. Ashley's a bit disheartened that she looks so different from the drawing. Her worry that her father won't recognize her, combined with the frustration at him further burying himself in the mansion instead of meeting up with her, is starting to grate on her nerves, and honestly, I can't blame her. I mentioned it before, but Richard's actions are super weird. Across the hall is Henry and Mary's room, where we find a music box missing a figure of a musician on the top. I suppose we'll have to find the missing piece and replace it later. Other than that, the most important thing is this note in a bottle. It's addressed to Henry, written by his wife Mary. The letter states that Henry has become a changed man since the passing of his grandfather and brother, drinking and having frequent violent outbursts. It seems the story they were given was that Thomas couldn't handle the grief and took matters into his own hands, but because of D, we know that's not true. During one night of heavy drinking, Henry began to swing a knife around his wife and daughter, which was the straw that broke the camel's back. Mary left the island with Frannie for the sake of both of their safety. That's a really sad story to hear, and it makes me wonder if Henry knew the truth or if the grief was just so powerful that it broke him. Down the hall is Frannie's room, where we get to find some of the girl's old artwork. She used to hand carve stamps to print artwork with, like this cute piece of her and Dee playing in the yard together with a dog. The page after it seems to be unfinished. Ashley looks around for stamps to complete it, finding 2 unused ones sitting in a nearby box. Planting them on the page reveals an image of one of Henry's drunken outbursts. Dee knows it's Henry because the man in the artwork has no arm, and Henry lost his arm during World War II. This is one of the puzzles that makes me fairly concerned for the remake. When you find the stamps, they're placed on the top screen of the DS, and you have to close the device to bring the stamps down to the paper. Puzzles like this were made expressly for this console, so they would have to be fundamentally reworked to function on a Switch. I have faith they could figure out a way to make the puzzle work, but would it be anywhere near as charming as the DS version? I can't really say. Across the hall is Henry's study, where we get another puzzle based around the DS. This picture frame folds just like the console, and the goal is to use the reflection of the screen to combine the 2 images to show the text 3F. This is an indicator to find the 3rd shelf on bookshelf F, which holds a hollow book with a wind-up key inside. Around 5 rooms back, Ashley finds the missing figure for the open music box in Henry's room. That figure, combined with the music box key, opens up a secret room behind the fireplace in Henry's study, a storage room of sorts. There are some pictures pictures on a box showing another secret doorway at the end of the hall just outside this room. What we previously thought was just a blank wall will actually open up when the candles are lit in this specific order. Alright, who designed this house exactly? Who needed all these secret passageways? And furthermore, why is it shaped like one gigantic, slightly askew line? A suitcase lays precariously balanced on a shelf in this room, which Ashley knocks down with a baseball. Inside this case is Dee's shoe, almost like someone was trying to hide it. From this point onwards, Dee becomes much more quiet than normal, and he refuses to answer any of Ashley's questions. This is an indicator that you are on the road to the bad ending. Two Memories has two different endings that you can get. To get the good ending, you need to find every single object and interaction in the entire game that can instigate one of Dee's memories. If you miss even a single one, you won't be able to get full closure on Dee's story. The majority of these memory triggers are something that the player will naturally stumble upon as long as they are thorough and examine every item that they come across. But there's one that just absolutely infuriates me, and I'd like to talk about it. After I found out that I was on the road to the bad ending, I cross-referenced a few lists of all the memory triggers online, and I had found everything that was mentioned. It wasn't until I watched someone's full video guide on YouTube that I had found the thing I had missed. Remember how frustrating it was to have to interact with the hand on the gate 3 different times in order to be allowed to complete the associated puzzle? We have a more egregious version of that right here. You may remember these two paintings of hummingbirds in the main hall. If you examine them, Ashley will make a comment about the painting, and then the player will move on. What you're supposed to do is examine the painting, then after Ashley speaks, click on it a second time to get some dialogue from Dee, where he goes on a little nerdy ramble about birds. Only once you have examined both paintings and gotten both of his side conversations will you be able to get the good ending. If Dee doesn't get a reminder that he likes birds by looking at a painting of a bird extra hard, you can't get the happy ending. That is so breathtakingly idiotic that I don't even know how it got past the creative team and implemented into programming. This is made even worse by the fact that an important tutorial is a part of one of Dee's extra conversations here. Remember when I put the two images next to each other and figured out the order of the numbers using fragmented sections of the Roman numerals? If you do the double examination of the paintings, Dee will teach you about a hidden feature in the DTS where you can overlay images on top of each other, combining the two paintings and making the puzzle a total piece of cake. This is a feature that you have to use several times throughout the game, and I probably would have had to Google puzzle solutions if it weren't for this tutorial. So why on earth would it be so well hidden? And why would it be locked to chapter 2? Seriously, you can come back here in every future chapter and the conversation will be locked. Because of this one design choice, I had to replay 3 hours of content. When you've examined everything, Dee will speak much more extensively about the shoe. They were a very nice pair that his father brought home for him so he would look good while visiting his ill grandfather. Dee promised to take good care of them since they were the nicest shoes he had ever owned, but his father claimed that he would buy him nicer shoes soon, because in the near future, they would have enough money to buy anything they could ever dream of. Back in the hallway, Ashley lights the candles at the dead end. Just like the photographs, this opens up a doorway to another section of the mansion, the dining room. On the corner of the table, Ashley stumbles upon a newspaper. The headlining article is about the murder of Dr. Syankora Robbins, Ashley's mother. She was shot in the chest and killed in her own home, with Richard Robbins being interrogated as a possible suspect. This finally prompts Ashley to open up about her reoccurring nightmare, as it seems to line up perfectly with this article. The nightmare goes as follows. It's Ashley's 3rd birthday, and she and her mother are waiting at home for her father to arrive. There's a birthday cake and a teddy bear with a pink ribbon on the table, but someone comes into the house. Sayako quickly tries to hide Ashley in the closet before exclaiming that she will never hand over Trace. A gunshot rings out. The last thing Ashley remembers is her father cradling her mother in his arms before approaching the closet. Ashley tells Dee the story about her nightmare before deciding that she wants to go home. Dee stops her, convincing her that the truth hurts in the moment, but she still needs to find out what happens. She came here to find her father, and now he's within grasp. She can finally learn what happened that night. She can learn who killed her mother. The lounge opposite the dining room is full of a droning static from a nearby radio. Instead of turning it off, you're required to fiddle with the controls until music plays. The music isn't important or anything, so I'm guessing that this was just an attempt to make a more difficult puzzle than find the power button. As the static ends, the door behind Ashley opens up. A tall blonde man cloaked in shadow stands in the doorway. He pulls her into a hug, telling Ashley that she has her mother's eyes and claiming to be her father. He never smiles, and all his portraits are very dark because of ever-present shadows. I get that he's not exactly #1 dad, but I didn't really get the impression from these messages that he would be so cold. Is this seriously Richard? Why are they trying to make him look so menacing? Something just does not feel right here. He thanks her for coming all this way, ensuring that she brought the DTS with her. When Ashley asks about Jessica, he claims to have not seen her. Ashley wants to know about what happened to her mother, and Richard claims that she was shot protecting both Ashley and Trace. He apologizes for leaving her alone for so many years, promising that he did not kill Sayako. She was the love of his life, and he changed upon losing her, dedicating every waking moment to completing their final project. Trace. But just as he's about to finally explain what Trace is, a loud thumping can be heard in the distance. Richard declares that he will go check it out, telling Ashley to wait here. She weirdly has no issue with letting her father leave after seeing him for the first time in 11 years. Dee comments on how weird that was, reinforcing my doubts that that was actually Richard. Even Ashley is a little off-put. She doesn't remember him smelling like cigarettes, although her memories of him are admittedly very scarce. Ashley leaves the room, searching for the source of the noise herself. She finds a tightly bound door in the kitchen, cutting the ropes with a rusty knife and finding Jessica inside, dizzy and recovering from being drugged. When asked who did this to her, she claims that it was Bill Edward. Well, I suppose that's what the weird note from earlier meant. Okay, so without a doubt, that dude Ashley met was Bill, not Richard. He found Jessica and drugged her, hiding her in the kitchen and searching for Ashley. Jessica is positive that Bill is here to try and get his hands on Trace, telling Ashley that she needs to find Richard immediately. He'll know what to do. Unfortunately, Jessica is still too disoriented to move much. She'll be more of a hindrance than anything, and elects to stay behind. Ashley leaves the kitchen, running to the end of the hall and opening the next door. Ashley is unable to find her father, even after barging into a bedroom to the side. This is Lawrence's room, which Dee figures out after seeing a portrait of the man and his grandsons on the wall. According to Dee, the man on the left is his father, Thomas. The man on the right has to be Henry, hence the missing arm. He's wearing a black sweater which fully jogs Dee's memories. Thomas was murdered by his own brother. Lawrence's diary can be found in the desk nearby, where the man documents his final thoughts while he can still hold a pen. He recalls his troubled relationship with his son, and receiving a letter of reconciliation from the boy. We read this letter back in the butler's room, but what we didn't know was that it arrived too late. Leonard had already passed away from his illness. Lawrence dedicated the rest of his life to not making the same mistakes he did with Leonard. He took care of his grandsons, and when they both chose artistic careers just as their father did, he encouraged them. Then the war started, and the military confiscated everything the boys were intended to inherit. When they returned, Thomas was emotionally damaged, and Henry was physically damaged. Many elements of this story have been fairly predictable or generic so far, but I have to admit the writers make me feel for Lawrence in particular. He butchered his first attempt at parenting, but was given a second chance, only to have everything taken away from him once again. It's sad stuff. As Ashley continues to look around, she finds a signed will and testament declaring that Lawrence intended to leave everything he owned to Henry. But why? He didn't have much left to pass down after the military took his money, but I can't imagine Lawrence leaving everything to just one of his grandsons. Nearby, Dee and Ashley hear a deep thumping noise. They trace it to a painting of a tree on the wall. The only interactable components are the branches, which indicates that we're going to need to press them in a specific order, like a code. To figure out the order, we need to use a nearby zoetrope. It's supposed to contain an animation of a bird landing on certain branches, indicating which places we need to tap in which order, but the zoetrope doesn't have any paper inside to display the animation. Handily enough, I saw a roll of paper all the way back at the other side of the mansion, but Ashley refused to take it because it wasn't relevant yet. Time to walk all the way back to the art room to get it. No wonder this chapter is called Retraced Steps. With the correct code inputted, the wall begins to rotate, revealing yet another secret room. Inside is a tall blonde man unconscious on the floor. $15 says it's Richard. Anyone? What, no one wants to take the bet because it's so obvious? Ashley pokes him in the face over and over again until he wakes up. When he puts on his glasses, the man seems to be in shock. The man clearly recognizes Ashley, calling her by name and expressing disbelief that she's here. Unlike the other supposed father that we met earlier, this guy actually acts how I imagine a parent would after not being able to see their kid for 11 years. He's excited, happy, and friendly instead of cold, quiet, and brooding. Despite this, Ashley starts accusing him of being Bill and telling him to stay away from her. I think now's as good a time as ever to talk about how much of a bumbling moron Ashley is. Look, I get that she's is 13, but oh my gosh, Ashley and Dee have both been regularly acting like idiots every time that they learn something in this game. Every time they found new evidence into Dee's past, it took 3 or 4 reiterations before these two would finally realize what it meant. When it comes to her father, Ashley is 10 times worse. She found someone who without a doubt in my mind is Bill, and just immediately believed that he was Richard. Then, after her maternal figure tells her that someone has been running around drugging and hurting people, she has no doubts that she met her real father, so much so that she starts treating the real Richard like a criminal with absolutely no evidence to back it up. After a solid 5 minutes of watching this idiot child scream obscenities and accusations at a stranger with absolutely no proof to back it up, Richard finally manages to say that he is Richard Robbins. Ashley conveniently remembers his face, cradling Sayako's body in his arms. Please take a look at this image from the flashback. To me, this very clearly looks like a grieving husband having lost the love of his life. But apparently, to Ashley, it looks like a crazed murderer. He's covered in blood after all. How could that have got there? She keeps interrupting Richard over and over again, every single time he tries to talk. She keeps accusing him of murdering her mother, so he gets quiet and leaves the room. What the hell was that interaction? How stupid do the writers think we are? Are we supposed to be on Ashley's side here? Are we supposed to also think that this is Bill? It's really obvious that this is Richard, so all this scene ends up doing is turning me against the protagonist even more than I already was. Ashley was irritating me for a large portion of this game because despite being 13 years old, she has the intellectual acuity of a 6-year-old. Now she's infuriating me because not only is she stupid, she's a dick. Well, with Pops chased off by the fact that his daughter finally hit her terrible twos, I suppose we should take a look around. There's a letter in the corner written from Henry to Frannie. He claims that he will be following Thomas, but first he wants to tell his daughter the truth about what happened at the manor. Mary believes that Henry killed Thomas so that he would inherit all of Lawrence's assets, but this isn't true. When Lawrence entered critical condition, Thomas brought his son Daniel to the home. Days later, Lawrence passed. That night, Thomas took Henry aside, claiming that because their grandfather used so many of his resources to help Henry get back on his feet after losing his arm, Thomas deserves the rest of it. He forged a will and wants Henry to read it out loud in front of everyone, bequeathing every remaining asset to Thomas. But as we know, Lawrence didn't leave anything behind. All that's left is the mansion. Everything else was taken by the military. Henry tried to explain this, but Thomas didn't believe him. He pulled a gun on his brother, threatening his life. In that moment, Henry disarmed him, killing Thomas in self-defense as Daniel watched. This confirms it. Dee's real name is Daniel. I do have one pretty big question though. If there were no assets left to bequeath, why wouldn't Henry have just agreed, read the will, and then watched as his brother got nothing? It would prove pretty clearly that Henry was telling the truth. The forged will in question sits on a suitcase nearby, typed unlike the one that bequeathed everything to Henry. It makes me wonder about that other will. It was handwritten and signed, so that implies authenticity. One possible explanation is that Henry forged this letter after his brother's passing, ensuring that the island would stay in the family. But it's equally as likely that Lawrence left the island to Henry all on his own because he had no idea Thomas was struggling financially, and Henry already lived there. I'm not totally sure, and we never really end up getting a clear explanation. At the end of the hallway, Ashley finally finds the research lab that Richard mentioned in his messages. Dee claims that it used to be a courtyard, hence why it seems so different from the rest of the building. They built the lab far after the rest. Unlocking the door to the lab is pretty cool. You have to breathe heavily on the glass using the microphone, revealing that someone wrote the combination in the glass previously. Inside is an office. The teddy bear from Ashley's 3rd birthday sits on a shelf next to a framed photo of Richard, Sayako, Jessica, and Bill. The desk holds a computer with several different documents on the desktop. Some of them are kind of silly, like Richard writing himself a reminder to shave before meeting Ashley. Others are more serious. The green document is a message from Richard to Bill, informing him that Trace is finally complete. Apparently Bill was the one who motivated Richard to complete Trace in Sayako's honor. He instructed Richard to come to the lab on Blood Edward Island, cutting off all contact with the world to ensure full focus on the project. I know Richard was vulnerable after losing his family, but I'm kind of baffled that he listened to Bill and isolated himself from his only remaining family during a time when someone would normally need a lot of support. The yellow document is a letter to Sayako that reveals what Trace actually is. The research that the Robins were doing led to a discovery of a technology that could create false memories. They fell in love and had a child, prompting Sayako to rethink Trace. They created created it so they could help victims of PTSD by replacing traumatic memories with pleasant ones, but upper management would surely use it for their own purposes. The Robins took their findings and hid them away without permission, submitting a falsified report about a massive error in the project. Then, someone found out what they did, killing Sayako. The letter ends with Richard wondering if Ashley will ever forgive him for selfishly going back to finish the project. He doesn't think he would, if placed in her shoes. Finally, he mentions the teddy bear on the shelf. It was a gift from him all those years ago, and he was saving it to give to her for the next birthday they spent together. Atop the desk is another framed photo, this time of Richard, Sayako, and Ashley all together. Finally, airhead Ashley realizes that the man she met in the secret room was her father. Here, have a gold star. Touching Sayako in the photograph will eject a white DTS card from the frame. This contains one of two activation codes needed to use Trace, with the second card, a red one, being found in the back of the bear she was supposed to get all those years ago. Dee and Ashley move further into the lab, finding Richard standing next to a large machine, Trace. Ashley reveals that she knows he's her father, and that the other man was Bill, but she doesn't apologize because she's the freaking worst. Richard explains that Bill is the final living Edward, and the owner of this island. According to Richard, Bill discovered that Ashley was needed to use the DTS, and it's biometrically associated with her fingerprint. He needed her on his side, and that's why he half-heartedly pretended to be Richard. Richard explains everything that's happened to him over the past few days. He finished Trace, summoning Bill and getting ready to see his daughter. It can be assumed that Bill drugged Richard as he woke up in the hidden room looking at Ashley with no idea how he got there. It may have been hours of unconsciousness, or it may have been days. All he knows is that when he woke up and was asked about Sayako, he had a very bad memory, one that he isn't sure is real. Richard refuses to say what the memory is, instead asking Ashley to use Trace to figure out if it's authentic. He worries that Bill may have manipulated his memories using a prototype DTS. This game's writing has oftentimes been confusing and shaky, and it really ramps it up here. I'm gonna do my best to interpret and explain what Trace is, but I may get part of it wrong. Trace has two features, implementing false memories and reading the original memories. The white card can read memories, and the red card can identify if the memories are real. As the only person with a non-prototype DTS, Ashley is the only person who can use both white and red cards. The DTSs are used for reading memories to see if they have been affected by Trace, but from what I can tell, you don't need a DTS to replace someone's memories. So why did Bill grab a prototype DTS? Richard sits down inside the Trace pod thingy, and Ashley uses her DTS to view the memory that may be fake. In between 6 identical images of Richard's face, we see that the memory in question shows Richard shooting Sayako. Thankfully, the red card proves that this is a manipulated memory. In between 7 more images of Richard's face, of course. Richard is released from the machine, thankful that his memory of killing his own wife was falsified. The happy family hugs and cries, and just before the credits can roll, Bill starts speaking over the intercom, demanding that Richard meet him in the nearby cave to have a talk. Ashley just wants to leave, but Richard wants to see things through. So into the cave we go, I guess? The entire intro to Chapter 6 is just our group walking down a lot of stairs and then through several corridors in the cave where we're supposed to meet with Bill, all while periodically being interrupted with expository dialogue. The gist is that Bill and Jessica probably dated, Ashley was a big crybaby as a kid, Richard was a huge fan of Henry's paintings, and Dee has been to the cave before. After witnessing his father's murder, he ran down here to get as far away from Henry as possible. He ended up taking his shoes off after a while because his feet hurt, taking the much more comfortable route of walking around on sharp rock barefoot. Henry caught up to him, causing Dee to drop his shoe, which we find in the cave. I'm not totally sure why the other one was up in that suitcase if this one is still here. Eventually, as the cave opens up, Bill can be spotted waiting in front of a bridge. He claims to have only manipulated Richard's memories in order to test Trace, but it's a fairly poor excuse. Apparently, Bill was also a worker on the Trace project and the final member of the team of 3. He was a major force behind funding the project, which is why he felt betrayed when he found out that Richard had biometrically locked the second Trace protocol using his daughter. Richard designed the second protocol with the hopes of playing back Ashley's memories of her mother's murder so he could uncover the killer and bring them to justice. Then he would replace Ashley's memory, removing the painful one. Bill fully believes that the only real reason anyone would create Trace is to manipulate the memories of those around them to create the world that they want. He's incapable of comprehending how it could be used to help those with trauma. According to him, Trace was funded by him, therefore he should be the one to reap the rewards. Richard grabs Bill by the collar, declaring that no one everyone should be allowed to use Trace for evil, but Bill pulls a gun on him. It feels like we're back on the docks in Hotel Dusk, and I know I'm mentioning the game a lot, there's just a lot of parallels, okay? Before he can pull the trigger, Ashley declares that she's going to sort through her memories of the night of the murder to find the killer without using Trace. Bill says no and claims he's still gonna shoot Richard, but then he doesn't shoot Richard and he starts quizzing Ashley on what she saw that evening. This is just another one of the end of the chapter quizzes on the events of the game. It's pretty straightforward. I think this is supposed to act as some big form of deduction where you have to put all the clues together to figure out who could have possibly done it, but come on, it's Bill. He funded the project, then it got stolen and sabotaged, so he killed Syankora and used her death to manipulate Richard into completing Trace for him. This would be easy enough on its own, but Ashley closes her eyes and gets a distorted image of the killer from her memories to put on the top screen. I'm really disappointed by this. Despite being rated T, this whole mystery feels like it's been spoon-fed to you, like it was intended for kids. There aren't any plot twists to keep the story interesting. It's all very linear, which hurts the mystery aspect of the game for me. Bill happily confesses to the crime after all of this, giving a fun villain monologue about his motives before suddenly stopping. For some reason, he can see D now. I don't know why, considering only trusting and innocent people are supposed to be able to see ghosts, but he sees him nonetheless. D tells Bill that he's making Frannie cry, startling the man enough to lose his footing and stumble backwards off the cliff. Richard catches him, but Bill quickly slips and is lost to the abyss. Richard heads back into the mansion for a moment to get Jessica while Ashley talks with Dee. The events of the night ended up jogging one final memory in him. As he ran away, Henry called out to him. He warned that if Dee were to keep running, something might happen with his heart. It sounds like he had some kind of heart disease. As he reached the bridge, Dee's heart clenched and he lost control of his body, tumbling towards the edge. Just like Bill, Dee fell off the cliff. The image imprinted on his chest is the final thing he saw, Henry's outstretched hand trying to save him. It seems that even though Henry made mistakes, he wasn't necessarily a bad man. He wanted the best for those around him, but he allowed his coping mechanisms to get the better of him. And now, with the death of Bill, every single Edward has met their tragic end. As Dee and Ashley make their way out of the cave, they find the captain actually waited all this time despite his claims. He was worried when Ashley didn't come back, so he went searching for her, taking a raft around the edge of the island to the bay where they're currently standing. The captain asks who her new friend is, looking directly at Dee. Dee panics and runs off, with Ashley following close behind to check on him. Most adults can't see him, so it was a bit of a shock that the captain could. 2 people in one day, after 57 years of waiting. The 2 kids begin to say goodbye to each other. After all these years, Dee finally knows what happened to him. He has closure, and that means he can move on. He and Ashley hold up their hands, pressing them together and causing the mark on Dee's chest to disappear. With that, Dee vanishes, finally moving on to whatever awaits him in his afterlife. Ashley rejoins the family, gazing up at the moon and the night sky as the credits begin to roll. After playing Hotel Dusk, I was really looking forward to 2 Memories. Unfortunately, you can definitely tell that it came first. The story is relatively linear and bland, with no real plot twists or engaging mysteries. There's a lot of questions that are never really answered, and some shaky plot points that I'm still confused about. Everything with the will is weird, and a lot of the development of Trace is weird. Even the functions of Trace still confuse me. Ashley is not a very likable protagonist, although that may be the fault of the North American translation. From what I could find, they changed Ashley's personality to try and make her sassier, to try and appeal to an American audience. I don't know to what degree they changed her, but I'm looking forward to trying the remake to see how she acts there. Since the remake is called Another Code and not Trace Memory, I imagine they would carry over her personality from the European translation. The visuals and music are very well done, with many of the tracks from this game immediately going into my library of background music for videos. The 2D artwork is gorgeous, with only a few exceptions when it comes to anatomy and some stills and sprites. The gameplay is where the game really falls flat, which is tragic considering how well done it was with Hotel Dusk. While many of the puzzles use interesting mechanics surrounding the DS, they also include a lot of fundamental issues that should have been worked around. There's so much backtracking and hyper-specific requirements for puzzles that could have easily been avoided with some minor programming reworks. While I wouldn't call it an outright bad game, Another Code 2 Memories is definitely a deeply flawed game. Despite this, I have high hopes for the sequel. They improved strongly from 2 Memories to Hotel Dusk, meaning the team had a lot more development experience for the sequel. Without further ado, let's take a look at the sequel, Another Code, R, A Journey into Lost Memories. In contrast to its predecessor, A Journey into Lost Memories was created for the Nintendo Wii, boasting full motion controls for all its puzzles. Normally I would be pretty excited about this, except for the fact that this game was never released in North America, where I live. Getting my hands on a copy would require importing it, and right now that is a much more expensive task than it used to be. Because of this, I'm going to be emulating the game. I'll be using keyboard shortcuts to emulate the controls to the best of my ability, but the inherent jank that will come alongside that strategy will mean that I can't properly review the actual motion controls. A Journey into Lost Memories opens with a scene fairly similar to the original game. Your DTS opens on the screen and requires a biometric scan to ensure that the correct person is using it. You may have noticed that the background says Dual Another System instead of Dual Trace System. This is because in Europe, the DTS was originally called the DAS, with Richard and Syakora's project being called Another instead of Trace. When the first game was ported to North America, they changed these terms. I get it, because I do prefer how much snappier Trace is. Also, Trace makes more sense to me than Another, since you're tracing memories, although I suppose the system can also replace these traced memories with another memory? It's weird, I don't get it. Since the second game was never released here, there was no translation team to alter the names, therefore I'll be using the terms DAS or DAS and Another for the duration of this game. Instead of using a fingerprint, this time you initiate a full facial scan with the Wiimote. This is Ashley, 2 years after the events of the previous game. We're using 3D models exclusively this time around, and I think the art style translates to 3 dimensions fairly well. The only thing I'm slightly iffy on is the cartoony line art that they implement on the edges of the characters. It looks a bit wonky at times. This is a new and improved DAS, different from the one used during Two Memories. It comes with a message from Richard, telling Ashley that she needs to meet him at a place called Lake Juliet so he may tell her something about her mother. Ashley puts the DAS away, looking directly into the player's eyes and giving them a recap of what happened after the events of the last game. It's really weird to me that she just breaks the fourth wall like this, as if she knows you're there and need information. I would have preferred a good old-fashioned internal monologue that we could hear. It would be a little bit less awkward. Seriously, it's really uncomfortable when she talks to you, and it happens often. I'm fairly certain that the animations during these scenes are motion captured, since there's a lot of unnecessary and overly performative movement. According to Ashley, after the events of Blood Edward Island, she lived normally with her father and Jessica for a while, but out of nowhere, Richard left once again, taking a job at a research lab called JC Valley. He promised to return on weekends, but rarely actually did so. As of right now, Ashley hasn't seen him in 6 months. 3 days ago, a letter came in the mail with the improved DAS requesting her presence at the lake for a family camp sponsored by his company. But now that she's in high school, Ashley has a much more active social life. She plays guitar and wants to enter a music competition. Does he really expect her to drop everything just to go see him after he abandoned her again? The game's transitions can be a bit awkward at times, so I'll make sure to point them out as we go if they're funny. Bye. Where'd she go? Where'd she go? Oh my god, he's holding a Wiimote. That's right, there appears to be another mysterious device that mimics the controller of the console the game is being played on. I really appreciate this idea, but it does make me curious if the devices will be redesigned for the remake. There's a cutscene with a bunch of disjointed scenes that we won't really understand until beating the game, followed by a little montage of Ashley getting ready to leave for the trip, having been forced to go by Jessica. She takes the bus there only to be pushed over by a woman cloaked in shadow. The woman steals her bag, walking off and evading a devastated Ashley. Thankfully, Ashley still has her mom's pendant that she was totally given right before her mother was shot. Don't you remember? From the last game? I dislike that they implemented this as a plot point. They just inserted this scene that flat out did not exist in the previous game and expect us to accept it as the truth. One thing I heard about the remake is that there were a lot of rewrites, especially regarding the second game. To make things less awkward, if they do decide to go with this pendant plot point, they will easily be able to add it into the first game to make it feel less forced. With no other option, Ashley starts to look around for her father. He sends her a message on the DAS telling her to check in at the guest house since he's still busy setting up the campsite. Unfortunately, the guest house seems to be locked. According to Dan, one of the forest rangers at Lake Juliet, the guest house is currently manned by a college kid who's probably just taking a break. He should open the doors again soon. Dan is an absolute sweetheart. He's so wholesome and helpful. He learns about Ashley's stolen bag, getting a description of the item and the perpetrator. Something kinda neat that they do here is they allow you to show Dan with your hands an estimate of how big the bag is. It's a very unique way to allow for responses, and it'll happen many times throughout the rest of the game. Apparently, Ashley Ashley's bag is a Pinky Rabbit bag. That's a cartoon character mentioned in Hotel Dusk, meaning it must be pretty old, because that game took place in '79. Dan tells Ashley to stay safe since some bad kids tend to hang around the area. A nearby villa recently burned down and he suspects that it was their work. Ashley promises to be careful before making her way back to the guest house. Right from the start, this game showcases one of its biggest issues: padding. The writing wastes a lot of time. That conversation with Dan took about 8 minutes in real time, and only about 2 minutes of it was actually important. It definitely adds some charm to the characters at first, but as the game kept going, I found my tolerance for it dropping. Especially when talking with characters like Richard, who spend half of their dialogue repeating what the person before them just said, but with a question mark at the end. The original game was about 6 chapters long, with a runtime of about 5 hours. This makes the average time per chapter around 50 minutes. The sequel is 9 chapters long, with a runtime of 16 hours. This makes the average time per chapter a whopping hour and 45 minutes. From what I can tell, the entire extra hour per chapter is spent on wasted or needlessly extended dialogue. For your sake, I'll be skipping over everything that is not necessary. Back at the guest house, the door is unlocked once again. Tommy, the college kid manning the counter, helps Ashley sign in, giving her a map and directions to her father's campsite. According to him, the family camp was cancelled, but Richard still wanted to spend time with his daughters, so he set up shop anyways. This means that almost no one else is camping at the moment except for some shady guy wearing a suit. Ashley makes her way towards the campsite, using the keycard issued to her at the sign-in counter to open the gate. As she does so, she suddenly gets a flashback to being here once before. It seems as though her mother took her here when she was a small child. That's something to look into. Behind the gate are 2 of Tommy's friends, this annoying screeching vulture Elizabeth and her hat-wearing companion Sam, who appears to be entirely sick of her whining over a lost MP3 player. I grew to deeply hate Elizabeth during the runtime of this game. She's a stuck-up jerk who treats people like crap. Therefore, I'll be referring to her as Wait, that's not nearly rude enough. How about I guess I should stay relatively PG. We'll call her Ashley ignores meeting her dad at their campsite. Richard doesn't notice that her bag is missing, and Ashley is a jerk about it. Ashley is even more of a moody teenager this time around, and it gets grating quickly, but I can't entirely blame her when it comes to her father. She yells at him for abandoning her for 6 months after everything they had been through, and he finally explains why he asked her to come here. According to him, everything he thought he knew about another and Sayako has been shaken. Tonight, they need to have a serious discussion about it. Richard gifts Ashley an MP3 player from his workplace, JC Valley, the logo of which brings back another memory. This means that Sayako took Ashley to the JC Valley Research Lab 13 years ago. This shocks Richard, prompting him to hand over the Wiimote-like device from earlier. This is the true Another System, or the TAS, a device that Sayako made. Similar to the DAS, it's biometrically linked to Ashley, meaning no one else can use it, including Richard. He has literally no idea what it does. Ashley keeps the TAS, and Richard asks to borrow Sayako's pendant for the day, both in the hopes of uncovering some memories. While Richard gets the rest of the barbecue set up, Ashley heads to the guest house to buy some charcoal. Tommy's nowhere to be seen, but noise can be heard coming from the back room. Ashley peeks through the blinds, finding a kid and his dog stealing food. The kid is holding Ashley's teddy bear, which was in her stolen bag. She takes a photo with her DAS. Using the TAS, Ashley unlocks the back room. All she has to do is point it at the keycard reader and follow the button prompts on the screen. These button prompts get more complex throughout the game, sometimes including simple math equations and tilt controls. One of the most clever ones requires pressing the home button to cover up invalid portions of the code. These are really interesting puzzles that make great use of the console's hardware, which is exactly what I expect to see from Sing. It's beautifully done. Ashley chases the kid back from the building, and he hops through a hole in the fence, leaving her in the dust. Tommy hears the commotion and follows. After hearing what happened and taking a look at the photo, he gets her the charcoal. They make small talk, leading to him showing a photo of the villa that burned down, before all the damage, of course. This activates another memory from 13 years ago. I swear to God, Ashley gains another memory every single time she sneezes, so I'm just gonna save my breath and stop mentioning it. All these memories are just confirmations that Sayako was at Lake Juliet. We also see tons of memories that show Ashley and Sayako interacting with characters that we meet in the game during present day, but we can skip over those as well using a convenient shorthand. It goes like this: if the character is a scientist, Sayako interacted with them 13 years ago. On the way back to the camp, Ashley runs into Richard, who has been called into work last minute. Apparently his assistant Gina will be coming to have the barbecue in his stead. This creepy suited dude, presumably the one Tommy mentioned, eavesdrops on their whole conversation. Richard makes her promise not to show the DAS or TAS to anyone before abandoning his daughter once again. Each chapter ends similarly to the first game, with a quiz about important information to keep in mind regarding the main plot. This is actually more helpful this time around since there's so much dialogue fluff and useless nonsense to sort through. The end of the quiz always includes a question where you have to match up some of the memories you regained with the item or the area that triggered the memory. While waiting for Gina, a man in dark clothes arrives at the campsite. This is Ryan. Apparently Gina had to deal with some urgent work, so now we get to have a barbecue with this guy. Now, I try not to be the kind of person to judge before getting to know someone, but
he definitely beats puppies in his free time.
Looking at his face, Ashley remembers meeting him 13 years ago, but he claims to not remember her. Honestly, I don't think I'd remember someone either if my first interaction with them was at age 2. He seems really insistent on claiming that he wasn't here 13 years ago, so he was absolutely here 13 years ago. The two prepare the barbecue, eating together, and having a fairly pleasant conversation about life and family. Ryan gets to talk about how he used to work at MJ Labs, the lab where another was being developed. He met Sayako, who helped him out quite a bit. Unfortunately, this conversation is rudely interrupted by a two-headed demon summoned from one of the most repugnant layers of hell. Oh, wait, it's... Oh, that is much, much worse. She's screeching to Ryan about losing her music player, and she rudely drags him off to help search because her problems come before everybody else's. Ryan can't totally say no because is the daughter of JC Valley's president. Yeah, that adds up. As they leave, Richard sends a message to Ashley asking her to bring his backpack to his cottage. She grabs his bag, heading down the road before running into Dan. The two catch up, with Dan finding out that Ashley's father is Richard. Apparently the two are acquainted. Dan gives Ashley directions to the cottages, but before she leaves, he asks her to take a look at a photo. A boy recently went missing, and he's been spotted in the area. Sure enough, it's the kid we caught stealing from the guest house, Matthew Crusoe. Ashley shows him the picture and gives her story, learning that this kid has run away twice now. Dan tells Ashley to keep away from the old boathouse since shady types like a man in sunglasses have been seen around there lately before heading off. Ashley walks past the lake, noticing Matthew standing near a tree. She asks him about the teddy bear, and he books it. Ashley follows, noticing the suspicious sunglasses dude heading towards some nearby mines. Dan runs over to go investigate while Ashley turns a left looking for Matthew. She finds him having accidentally locked himself inside a nearby well. She reveals everything she knows about him but refuses to explain how she got the information until he answers some of her questions. We learn a few different things here. Firstly, he found Ashley's bag and the teddy bear near the burned down villa. Secondly, he found an ID card and a music player near the mines, taking them for himself but tossing the player when it didn't work. These are probably Good job, kid. Good job. That ID card is what led him into the back room of the guest house. They get to talking about Ranger Dan, with Matthew divulging more information on why he ran away. Apparently his father went missing 5 years ago and his mother died sometime thereafter. Now he lives with his uncle, who knows perfectly well where Matthew is but has not come to get him. He claims that his father is very rich, having been kidnapped. His uncle couldn't pay the ransom, so Matthew never saw his father again. Now he's here searching for clues, just like the last time he ran away. He gets the impression that Ashley doesn't believe him, running off again. Or maybe he just ran off because she decided to start calling him Matt even though he introduced himself as Matthew. Because she uses the name Matt for the entire rest of the game, I'm just gonna switch to that. Ashley moves to the villa, finding the sheet music from her bag. Matt shows up, suddenly not upset anymore, and after asking Ashley why she was staring into space, she explains the circumstances around her mysterious flashbacks. Matt reveals that he lied earlier. His father wasn't kidnapped, but he did disappear. The two notice some giant footprints in the burned soil, which Matt thinks may belong to the suspicious man. Apparently he was around here earlier. Ashley gets another message from Richard asking where she is. I don't think you have the right to impatiently message your daughter, man. You've been ignoring her for 6 months, and your record is 11 years. Matt disappears while she reads her message. Ashley runs back towards the cottage, runs into Tommy and Sam, and learns that they're in a band with on vocals. Gross. Apparently they're entering the same music competition that Ashley was planning on entering. Back at the lake, we walk right and get this ridiculous super speed animation of going around the corner to a path leading to the clock tower. Nearby is a boathouse with Matt standing outside. He wants to look for clues here, but it was locked last time he ran away. This time he has a card, but it still doesn't work. Ashley tells Matt to look away, using her task on the door and unlocking it. The two find a bag floating inside the lake alongside a bracelet and the floorboards that jog another flashback. They open the bag with a life drive preserver, finding that it belonged to Matt's father. Unfortunately, it's locked. Using an old family photo, Ashley deduces the code. All 4 family members' names are written on the back, lined up to spell the code, Lake. Wait, Matt has a sister? I wonder where she is. There's a lot inside the bag, including a toy car, a water analysis kit, and a floppy disk with the label Crusoe Resort. Crusoe Resort is apparently the company that Matt's dad used to run before going missing. They dig through stacks of ruined papers, finding a soggy but still usable photo album with all kinds of old photos. Matt hears footsteps and hides behind the boathouse door, leaving Ashley to deal with an unhappy Dan. She was told not to come here because it isn't safe. Ashley deflects this, mentioning that there was a bag in the water. What if it was her bag? This brings the conversation to Crusoe Resort. Apparently, Crusoe Resort was in the process of turning Lake Juliet into a tourist destination, but it was shut down when the CEO went missing. Around that time, the clock tower stopped working. Ashley and Dan part ways, with Ashley finding an old rundown cottage on the side of the path. She explores, finding some muddy footprints leading towards a trapdoor in the floor. Inside, she finds Matt alongside equipment for a makeshift photo development studio. There are a ton of photos on the wall containing people who may look familiar to you. These are all characters from Hotel Dusk. Here we have Louis and I think Martin. Next up is Dunning and Jenny, followed by Rosa and... wait, is that the captain from the first game? In Hotel Dusk, Rosa talked about being married to a captain who was away at sea. She's married to the captain, the one from the first game. This is our confirmation that the games take place in the same universe, and I'm so happy they included it. We get to talking with Matt, who gives us some insight into why he doesn't want to go back home. Apparently his uncle is planning to send him to a boarding school in London, meaning he won't have any opportunities to search for his father for years. Ashley makes him promise to make today the last day of his search. If he can't find anything about his father by the end of the day, he should go home and talk to his uncle about everything. It turns out Matt hides in this cottage sometimes because it's abandoned. A photographer named Gilbert Moss used to live here, but he went missing. He was the one who took the photos of the Hotel Dusk characters, which Ashley finally goes to look at. She doesn't recognize anyone from those photos, obviously, but she does take note of the one in the top right. That's Richard and Sayako. According to the date in the corner of the photo, Richard and Sayako went here many years before Ashley was even born. Matt comments that he's seen Richard at the mermaid statue in the background before, testing the nearby lake water. Just like Matt's dad. Ashley and Matt head off towards the statue, running into... She asks why Ashley's hanging out with some dirty kid, and Ashley explains it's because they're friends. Oh, sorry, you wouldn't know anything about those, would you? Friends are when people enjoy your company and spend time with you. Maybe one day, if you stop being such a pretentious piece of trash, someone will voluntarily be around you instead of doing it because daddy paid them off. Ashley tries to tell her that they found her music player, but in true fashion accuses Matthew of stealing it with no evidence. Richard shows up, getting tired of waiting for Ashley, and he immediately sides with fully believing her instead of his own daughter, despite having literally no evidence to back up her claims. He tries to claim that Matt is poisoning Ashley's mind. Okay, you've earned a new name just for this interaction. Walks away because she's done orchestrating her stupid manipulative bullcrap, with Matt also leaving because he's sad now. Ashley yells at her dad for being an idiot, and for some reason, now that everybody else is gone, he hears her out and believes her, promising to apologize to Matt. This entire insanely infuriating scene of unfair nonsense could have been completely removed, but instead, I got to sit through a full 10 minutes of it. I'm getting sick and tired of how much rambling and wasted time there is here, and I'm getting even more sick of the formatting. This is supposed to be a puzzle story game, but the ratio of puzzles to story points is awful. Most of the game is spent having way too long of conversations with characters, having them leave for some reason, hunting them down, and then continuing the conversation. Rinse and repeat, throw in a puzzle every 3 to 4 interactions, bada bing bada boom, you have the world's most boring game. I understand the basic concept of wanting to dive into all the intricate details of each character, and speaking with them is one of the best ways to do that, but unfortunately, the way it's handled here severely detracts from the game. We're trying to solve a mystery, but everything takes so long. Even the animations take forever. Instead of playing an animation at the same time as dialogue, this game will oftentimes animate dialogue, pause to execute an animation for a reaction, then continue with the dialogue once it's complete. That combined with the sheer quantity of unnecessary dialogue has been driving me nuts. As this video goes on, you may notice that I speed through the dialogue faster and faster during the background footage. That is your visual indicator of how sick and tired I was of wasting so much time. Ashley finds Matt at this tree, learns that his uncle claims that his sister has gone somewhere far away forever, and then uses a treasure map the kid drew to find a letter written from his mom. She tells him to be a good boy and to stay away from the clock tower. They start heading towards Richard's cottage so he can apologize to Matt, but Ashley spots the suspicious guy heading towards the clock tower. She follows him, finding the mermaid statue nearby. She tries to get some information out of him, and despite him saying he won't share anything, we learn quite a lot. First of all, his name is supposed to be John Smith. That's clearly an alias, but the rest of his information seems genuine. He's a journalist investigating the disappearance of Matt's father, Michael, 5 years ago. John leaves and Ashley heads to the clock tower, where bafflingly she remembers being there before. She meets back up with Matt, heading for the bridge to the cottages and running into a gate. Neither of their cards work on it for some reason, so Ashley uses the task, deciding to just explain it to Matt as long as he keeps it a secret. They run super speed again and find themselves at this row of incredibly nice cottages. Inside, Richard apologizes to Matt, learning about the boy's story. He offers him a conciliatory Cool Pop, which is the most popular soda brand in this game. Soda's cool and all, but you're a growing boy, Matt. You need to get something healthier in your system. I'm partial to this video's sponsor, GamerSupps. GamerSupps' delicious energy formula has 0 calories, essential vitamins and minerals, and 100 milligrams of caffeine. They have regular flavors as well as flavors with absolutely ridiculous names, just in case you want to disturb your relatives by pounding a glass of guacamole gamer fart at family dinner. Personally, I've been loving the flavors strawberry lemonade and dirty little secret as of late. If you want to help support the channel while also getting a discount, use code BENAGAN at checkout to get 10% off your entire order. Plus, for the next week, GamerSupps is giving out free shipping on all orders over $75. That's 2 100 serving tubs or more, meaning you're getting at minimum 6 months worth of GamerSupps with completely free shipping. That, alongside my 10% discount code, is an absolutely insane deal that you should totally be taking advantage of. That's code BENAGAN for 10% off your order. Richard gets a phone call and has to head straight back to work. Apparently there's some problem with the security system. He tells Ashley to get dinner on him at a nearby diner if she gets hungry, so at least we have that. Matt decides he wants to research his father while waiting on Richard, so we head upstairs to the laptop to search the internet. For some reason, the laptop won't turn on without the DAS plugged into it. Also, mild side note, there's this picture on the desk of everybody together after the events of the last game, and the poor captain is just shoved to the side in the background. All Ashley finds on the internet is information about Matt's father winning the lottery and using the money to start his company. The company site hasn't been updated since he went missing. The phone starts ringing and Ashley picks up. It's Jessica, who checks in on her and hears how things are going. She's frustrated that Richard is being, well, Richard, but she's still hopeful that they'll sort things out. According to her, Richard returned to JC Valley because he got an email from someone claiming that there was more to Sayako's death than he knew. We yoink his password and snoop through his emails, finding the message in question sent by an anonymous user. It goes into slightly more specifics, claiming that someone orchestrated Sayako's murder from behind the scenes. I guess someone was supposedly manipulating Bill? A noise comes from Ashley's DAS. Somehow she's been given access to the security cameras all across Lake Juliet. None of it contains live feeds, but there are plenty of photos, including one of Mr. John Smith at the mermaid statue. Hopefully we can find a use for these. Ashley wants to test out the security cameras, heading down to the mermaid statue with Matt. She brings along a water testing kit from the cottage since Matt claims to have seen Richard testing the water in that area. The security cameras take a picture whenever Matt is in frame, but for some reason they never take photos when Ashley is in frame. The duo decide to use the water testing kit in a shockingly in-depth minigame. It's all based around motion controls, which was seriously difficult to work around using a keyboard. A lot of these minigames were difficult for me to pull off with my unorthodox setup, but I can still thoroughly appreciate how much time and effort was put into them. According to the kit, Lake Juliet's water is incredibly acidic, which is an indicator of pollution. They move to a nearby pond separate from the lake, finding that it's equally polluted. Before we can discuss the implications of this, the DAS buzzes with a text from Richard. Dan found Ashley's lost bag and is bringing it to the cottage. Dan asks Ashley to double check everything that's inside, and for the most part, it is. Whoever stole it took her case of guitar picks but left her wallet? Why? Dan found the bag by a half-built cottage just down the way, but John Smith is in the way of their investigation. Ashley tries to eavesdrop, but the man immediately spots her. Still, we learn that he's been unable to locate any clues about Michael Crusoe. He advises us to give up on the search before leaving. Matt claims to recognize him from back when Crusoe Resort was still up and running. giving chase. Unfortunately, Mr. Smith shakes him. Ashley and Matt end up searching for the man in a nearby garden before being chased out by an antagonistic old woman who owns the property. Matt heads back to Richard's cottage while Ashley searches the half-built cottage for her pick case. It's here, meaning whoever stole her bag took literally nothing from it. Everything that was lost most likely fell out on its own. So what on earth could the motive behind the theft have been? Matt complained about being hungry earlier, so Ashley stops by the diner to get him some food on her father's tab. The owner of the diner is one Bob Fox. Considering his similar appearance to the captain from Two Memories and his shared last name with Rosa Fox, I believe this to be their son. He's a super kind and personable guy, but the game insists on giving us his entire backstory on how he started his business in intricate detail. And don't get me wrong, it's interesting, especially since he's one of the few characters in this game that I truly like. Bob gives us his magnum opus, a salmon rice burger, to give to Matt, and the boy happily scarfs it down. While Matt was waiting for us, he was going through all of Richard's books, one of which contains some information on a familiar-looking journalist named Greg Davis. It turns out that John Smith, one of the most common aliases of all time, was just an alias. We'll be calling the suited man Greg from now on. Downstairs, Ryan knocks on the door looking for Richard. He asks if Ashley is alone, prompting Ashley to give tons of details about how she's here with her friend Matt Crusoe. That's something that really bothers me about Ashley. Without regard for the situation she's in, she always gives out full names. Every single time she introduces herself to someone, it's not as Ashley, it's as Ashley Mizuki Robbins. Now, when talking about her friend Matt, someone who is actively being searched for by the authorities, she willingly gives out his full name. Ryan claims that she shouldn't associate with Matt because of the controversies surrounding Crusoe Resort. He invites her over, not wanting Matt to overhear anything. Ryan claims that Crusoe Resort is responsible for all of the pollution present at Lake Juliet before being called off to the lab. On her way back to Matt, Ashley runs into and a classmate of hers, Janet. Apparently they're cousins. They blab for a while before parting ways, but before Ashley can talk to Matt about Ryan's pollution claims, Janet calls her requesting that she come over. She needs a favor and Ashley is willing to deliver, apparently, despite not particularly liking either of them. I guess ditching people runs in the family. Bye, Matt. This entire section is a lot of backstory that attempts to explain why she's such a jerk. We learn some family drama about a messy divorce, and we even get to meet her dad, Rex Alfred, but ultimately none of this is all that important. Basically, Stinky misses her mom and Rex has been hiding all the letters sent from her. Therefore, crybaby Wawa Pants takes it out on everyone around her. Since this is a giant waste of time, Ashley goes to check in on Matt. He left the cottage, heading to the clock tower to investigate. He figures that since his mom told him to stay away, there must be something important inside. Unfortunately, the door is still locked. Matt starts abruptly showing symptoms of illness, so Ashley brings him back to the cottage for rest where he flat out collapses. Ashley asks Diner Bob Salmon Pants for some help, and he directs her to the cranky old lady who kicked us out of the garden. Apparently she has some killer herbal medicines. Ashley gets her attention and explains the situation, name-dropping Bob to win her over. Apparently this woman is named Charlotte Graham, which coincidentally is the same last name engraved in the clock tower door. Miss Graham gives Ashley a recipe for a special medicine for Matt, giving her the correct herbs from the greenhouse. They really pad out the gameplay here, making the player get water from a creek all the way on the other side of the map as one of the extra ingredients for the medicine. With the sketchy old lady brew cooked and in hand, Matt is magically healed. Ashley returns the extra supplies to Miss Graham, telling her that the medicine worked like a charm. Ashley gets her entire backstory, which I will not be relaying to you in detail because it is truly pointless and has no effect on the plot. Quick summary: Miss Graham's daughter married Gilbert Moss, the photographer who took the photos of the Hotel Dusk cast. She didn't approve of their marriage, so now their relationship is on the rocks. All you need to know is that Miss Graham, as her name suggests, has the keys to the clock tower and is entrusting Ashley with them in the hopes that she can get the old tower up and running again. I feel like we could skip the majority of this chapter. It seems to exist as an excuse to make Mrs. Graham not hate us, but what if she was just a nice old lady? Or better yet, we know that Bob's name can help get us some leeway. What if we walk up and be like, hey, we gotta get in this clock tower and we hear you're related to it. By the way, we're friends with Bob. Salmon rice burgers, huh? Then we could skip all of this chapter. Ashley and Matt head over to the clock tower to investigate using the keys to reactivate it. Crammed within some of the gears is a puzzle box of sorts which Ashley knocks free using a broom. As they leave the tower, Ashley gets a text from her father telling her that there is a very high likelihood that he won't be returning from the office until tomorrow morning. If she doesn't want to wait, she's welcome to go home. Ashley claims that this doesn't sound like something that he would say, but despite this, she doesn't look anything any further into it. Instead, the two decided to investigate the old Crusoe Resort office down past the JC Valley Research Center. Unfortunately, the path has been completely blocked by rubble. The only way to get through is by taking the path through Miss Graham's backyard, which makes absolutely no sense considering how many people we've seen go to and from the research center since this game has started. There is no way that all of them are walking through Miss Graham's house to get to and from work each day. Crusoe Resort's offices are in disrepair, which is expected of a building that hasn't been looked after in 5 years. Despite this, Matt is still able to reliably recognize where they are. In the reference room on the first floor, Matt is able to retrieve a doll that he hid from his sister Kelly years and years ago. Apparently she used to be a real crybaby, and his parents would blame him for making her cry every single time without fail. To get back at her for this injustice, he would tease her and hide her stuff, including this doll. In the corner of the room, the ghost of Kelly appears. So Matt's sister is dead. Matt runs up to her, seemingly not aware that she's a ghost. He tells her just how much he missed her before taking the doll from Ashley and returning it, apologizing for his actions. I really do like the effect that they used for Kelly. She's a 2D illustration just like the assets from Two Memories. I'm sure that was a lot easier to make semi-transparent than a fully 3D model, but it really differentiates her from the living characters. With her doll safely back in her hands, Kelly is able to pass on to whatever awaits her beyond. Matt desperately looks around for her, with Ashley pausing to explain that his sister was a ghost. She's dead, and he won't be seeing her anytime soon now that she's moved on. Ashley explains everything about her friendship with Dee. As Matt begins to understand, repressed memories flood into him. When their dad disappeared and their mom got sick, Matt spent a lot of time with Kelly. She was always crying because of her missing doll, so instead of returning the doll, Matt took her to the boathouse to try and cheer her up. Kelly wanted to touch the water, refusing to listen as her big brother urged her not to go. He let go of her and she fell into the water, where she proceeded to drown. Matt blames himself, but Ashley claims that it's not his fault. Except, from what I can gather, it is. He didn't jump in to save her or throw her a life preserver. He didn't do anything to save his sister from drowning beyond telling her not to touch the water. Hell, they wouldn't have even been there if he had just given the doll back. This entire section of Matt's backstory is very poorly written, so there's a chance that he did these very important things, but the writers failed to mention it. Even if this is the case, it doesn't excuse how weirdly abrupt it is that all of this happened. That big of a death requires a lot of build-up, but Kelly was barely mentioned before this scene. This death doesn't even do anything for his character, which brings me to one of the biggest issues with this game. If Kelly didn't exist, the story wouldn't have changed. Matt has no character development from this. He doesn't vow to change, he just feels bad and moves on. That happens with the majority of the characters in this game. A large portion of the things that they say and do could be removed without altering the finished product in any meaningful way. I sincerely hope this is changed in the remake. As they leave, Greg shows up, wondering how they managed to get inside. He has a change of heart compared to earlier, maybe because we let him into a building with more clues, so he tells us everything about his investigation. As we know, he's been looking into Michael Crusoe's disappearance. When Crusoe Resort was still functioning, pollution began to appear in Lake Juliet, and the locals all blamed him. He and Greg investigated this, with Michael finding that the pollution was caused by JC Valley, and the company had worked to frame him. 5 years ago, they were set to meet at the clock tower so Michael could provide evidence and a report about the entire situation, but he never showed up. Supposedly this report was hidden in a children's toy for security purposes. Ashley hands over the box we found in the clock tower using a code given to Greg by Michael. They unlock the box, revealing the report. Greg promises to immediately publish it, revealing the truth about the pollution to the general public. When he leaves, Ashley gets another text from Richard. He urges her to immediately make her way to JC Valley in yet another very uncharacteristic text message. This time, Ashley doesn't even bat an eye, she just believes him and heads to the research lab. Outside, she meets Gina, the woman who was supposed to go to the barbecue instead of Ryan. According to her, Richard sent her here to escort Ashley into the lab. Gina tells Ashley to come inside, but she won't let Matt come with. This lady is a real piece of work. She's condescending, mean, and regularly insults both Ashley and Matt as if that's going to get them to listen to her. Matt's last name is mentioned, and this leads to a discussion about how evil his dad was for polluting the lake, which results in even more snark from Gina. Ashley never stands up for herself, so she listens to Gina and they head inside an empty meeting room. Gina tells Ashley that her father is a liar and that there have been no issues with the security systems whatsoever, and once again, gullible little square brain Ashley Ashley listens to her. Gina leaves the room, promising to be back soon with Richard. Ashley gets another text from Richard claiming that something bad is happening at the lab and that she needs to take the task and go home right away for her own safety. Well, considering the fact that Gina appears to have locked us in here, I'm inclined to agree. Ashley unlocks the door with her task, moving to the reception desk and unlocking the security room using the world's best guarded passcode: today's date. A communications device on the wall begins to ring. Richard is calling the completely empty security room for some reason, but hey, at least we can talk to him now. He reveals the shocking plot twist that he wasn't the one who sent those messages on the DAS. Whoa! The only message he sent was the one to take the task and run. Richard instructs Ashley on how to use the security cameras to keep an eye on her surroundings, forcing her to reveal that we kinda used his computer to give ourselves access already. Richard changes the feed to show the inside of the research lab, promising to come and meet us as soon as possible. Unfortunately, someone bursts into his office and knocks him out. Ashley calls Mike Tyler on the communications device, recalling that name as Greg Davis's internal contact. If she can trust anyone here, it has to be him. Mike's a huge help, quickly meeting Ashley in the security office. He refuses to believe that Gina would lock Ashley in the meeting room, but still agrees to help her regarding Richard. We learn a few different things from him. First of all the security shutters are down, but they should always be open. Second of all, we learn about how the DAS and the security cameras work. Remember how Ashley wouldn't appear in the security feeds, but Matt would? This is because the DAS interferes with the cameras, refusing to take photos. Initially, I thought this was going to be some interesting plot point or something used for some unique gameplay, but it's never mentioned again. Just another plot point that was crafted and implemented only to never get any worthwhile payoff. The security system in this room has a giant hole in it, so Mike needs to take a look at it. He unlocked the security shutter, so he tells Ashley to wait in his office so they can go check on Richard soon. This is a shared office for both Mike and Gina, but according to the ID badge irresponsibly left on Gina's desk, the snarky woman from earlier was lying to us. She's not the real Gina, she's someone else entirely. Real original implementing a plot point where someone claims to be someone else. It's just Bill and Richard all over again. Mike returns, telling Ashley to stay here where it's safe while he goes to check up on Richard. She's to stay next to the communications device so he can contact her as soon as he knows what happened to Richard. The office gets a call from a different office allowing us to meet the real Gina. She immediately recognizes Ashley and is super nice. Fake Gina walks into the room halfway through our explanation before seeing what's going on and booking it. According to real Gina, that is Sophia. Gina and Ashley plan to meet in Richard's office. It's no longer safe here now that Sophia knows where they are. Richard is nowhere to be seen, but Mike is unconscious on the floor, clearly the victim of a similar attack. He's drowsed for long enough to tell us that Gina is in Sophia's office, mentioning something about Richard's mail. His computer contains an email stating, "I've finally found out who it is. It's Sophia. Hurry." The security shutter here is locked once again, but Ashley can unlock it with a pretty cool puzzle where she reflects the business end of her task off of a mirror on the other side of a shutter to unlock it. In Sophia's office, Gina has also been attacked and is unconscious on the floor. This has completely lost its impact at this point because of how many times we've seen it in the last 20 minutes. Sophia blocks the doorway using a stun gun on the lock and trapping both Gina and Ashley inside. Ashley wakes Gina, learning what Richard meant in his email. Sophia has been leaking information out of the lab. Gina prints out some evidence before asking Ashley to call Mike to see if he's regained consciousness. He's back up and running, but for some reason the communicator microphone isn't working on our end, so Ashley has to use hand gestures to communicate. Look, the gestures we've been able to use in the past have been neat sometimes, but they're getting more and more ridiculous the longer they're here. We go through a charade song and dance where Mike shows Ashley how to override the door. With our little trio of trouble finally assembled, we take a look at all the evidence Gina had. It's an encrypted email that we decode using a pen thingy. According to the decoded message, Sophia's final task is to find information relating to mnemonic fluid. Gina makes Casper a very happy ghost in the background while Ashley does her chapter and mental quiz. Gina suspects that Sophia has an accomplice, but she isn't sure who yet. Ryan calls on the communicator, being surprised that Ashley is in the lab. They give him the lowdown before agreeing to meet at his office. Before they head over, we learn that Ryan lied about Gina having urgent work. Gina was ready to go to the barbecue, but Ryan insisted that he go instead. All the more evidence that he's a secret puppy kicker. Outside Ryan's office, Gina hands over the email printed from Sophia's computer. He claims that he'll be reporting this to the director. Ryan takes Ashley back to his office where he tells her that there's no way Sophia did any of this and that he's sure sure it's all a giant misunderstanding. Sure, Gina can testify that Sophia attacked her, and we got her to admit her crimes verbally, and we also have printed evidence of her leaking information, but I mean, that doesn't mean anything, right? She's probably just some meaningless peon assisting the true criminal, so obviously that makes her not guilty. I think I hate this man. Ryan claims that Richard is fine because he just spoke with him moments ago. He's currently hiding from his pursuer. Oh, so you knew he was being attacked. Then why act so surprised over the intercom, puppy kicker? Apparently it's because he doesn't trust the wicked and evil Gina. Okay, so I think we can all agree that Sophia and Ryan are clearly working together, right? Good thing we gave him our only evidence. Ryan gets a call from the director, and the two quickly decide to meet. Ryan says that for safety, he's locking the door behind him, and the second he leaves, Richard calls from a room labeled Another Control Room, claiming that we need to find the director and tell him that old Pop Pop is locked in the control room. We can trust Rex, but we cannot trust Ryan. What a plot twist. Before he can explain, he's disconnected. Thankfully, Ryan's computer is full of plenty of evidence of his own misdeeds, like proof that he was the one sending false messages to us under Richard's name. Ashley breaks out of the office with the task, encountering Sophia nosing through a secret compartment in the director's office. The two argue for a while, with Sophia being a hypocrite and Ashley sharing too much information per usual. The only important things that come out of it is confirmation that Ryan is the accomplice and Ashley's realization that Sophia was the one who stole her bag, for some reason. Sophia agrees not to hurt Ashley as long as she doesn't warn anybody about what happened here. As soon as she leaves the building, Ashley is free to go do whatever. For some reason, Sophia just decides to tell Ashley some incredibly classified information here. Apparently, over a decade before Richard finished his version of Another on Blood Edward Island, the original director of JC Valley made his own version of Another that could only extract and delete memories. It ran using mnemonic fluid, which is a liquid that can store memories. The fluid is what was inside of Syako's pendant. Sophia heads out and tells Ashley that she can leave once she's figured out how to open the secret compartment in this room. I would love to do that, but the game instantly crashes every single time I take a photograph required to complete this puzzle. I ended up having to Google a code to input into this globe statue thingy which unlocks the compartment. Inside is a box with an indent inside matching the shape of Sayako's pendant. Rex walks inside wondering what the heck Ashley's doing inside of his office, so she explains everything to him. He tells her about Sayako's pendant. Apparently, when Sayako was planning to leave the world of science behind to focus on taking care of her daughter, the original director, Judd Fitzgerald, gave her an ultimatum: continue working here or have all her memories of the project erased. Sayako chose to have her memories erased, losing all of her memories from her time at the lab. She was most saddened by the fact that she lost the memories of Ashley's birth? Wait, so she lost all of her memories over all of those years? She wouldn't even remember meeting and falling in love with Richard in that case. How does any of that even make sense? Rex took the mnemonic fluid containing all of the memories of the day of Ashley's birth, putting it into the pendant and giving it to Sayako behind Judd's back. The comm starts buzzing with a call from another control room. It's Ryan, who is unabashedly giving a villain monologue about using Judd's version of Another once again. He just tells the two people who can stop him all of his plans and where he is before hanging up. Seriously, what was the point of that phone call? All he did was worsen his own situation. We rush on down to the Another control center to save Richard, and Ashley is able to unlock the door with her handprint because apparently they scanned her handprint into the system when she was 2? The further in we get, the more the plot falls apart. Richard is strapped into Another, with Ryan having removed his memories for some reason. Now he just needs to delete them, which he of course announces. Real original, implementing a plot point where Richard has his memories manipulated against his will by Another. Once again, it's Bill and Richard all over again. Ryan claims that Bill pulled the trigger on Sayako, but that someone else orchestrated the plan from behind the scenes. He refuses to talk any further, so Rex bursts through the apparently unlocked door only to have the world's worst handgun model pointed at him. Seriously, the models in this game are generally fairly good. Why is only the gun terrible? He knocks Rex out with the butt of the gun, and he and Ashley start talking. This is where we learn that Ryan literally cannot feel emotions, so he has no idea why Ashley is so riled up over his threats to delete Richard's memories. He tells her that if she can open the long cuboid box in Richard's office and bring the contents back, he won't delete the memories. It should contain a special device that unlocks the memory restoration function in Another. Ashley heads upstairs, unlocks the box, and sure enough, it contains the device in question, the TAS Plus. I like this. It mimics a Wii nunchuck, and you have to plug it into the Wiimote to download the memory restoration software. Doing so in an emulator was a bit tricky to figure out, but it was far from impossible, and it's probably the most fun thing I've gotten to do in the last 2 chapters, which is not a very good thing to say about this game. Ashley returns to the control center, with Ryan remarking that she took her sweet time. Richard is released from Another, but something is off. Richard has no idea where he is or who he's speaking to. This somehow surprises Ashley, even though she was told that Richard had his memories extracted, 30 minutes ago? Ryan claims that the memories can still be restored using the device from the box, but the connector doesn't fit the console. With that, Richard's memories are gone forever. Ryan doesn't feel bad because of the whole no empathy thing, and when Ashley starts crying, he starts yelling at her because apparently he hates seeing people cry. To him, it's a pathetic defense mechanism for the weak or whatever. Ryan claims that he will restore Richard's memories if Ashley helps him with a memory experiment. Ignoring the fact that it has been well established that only Ashley's newly upgraded task can restore memories, she agrees to help this lunatic. Ryan is going to overwrite Ashley's memories with those of her mother. He wants to analyze the memories in the pendant, and for that to happen, they need to be in someone else's head. This will overwrite all of the memories that Ashley wants to forget to make room for the new memories. Ashley sits down in the machine, where we learn that the pendant actually contains a lot more of Sayako's important memories than just Ashley's birthday. Either way, Ashley ends up not having any memories that are disposable, so the experiment fails. An upset Ryan once again betrays her, refusing to restore Richard's memories because it's literally impossible, come on. This shocks dumb idiot monkey brain Ashley, who somehow didn't see it coming. I do not understand how she managed to lose brain cells from the first game to the second, seriously. Maybe she was always this dumb in the more faithful European translation? Ashley, you've temporarily lost your name privileges. Our resident moron tells Ryan that she has the task and will restore the memories herself. She is thoroughly surprised when he pulls a gun on her and shoots, but unfortunately our dunce cap wearing protagonist is heroically saved by both Richard and Rex. Rex gets shot, and for some reason Ryan runs away instead of taking the task like he said he wanted to. Ashley uses another to restore Richard's memories. Rex asks them to unlock a laptop from the control room, which contains a message from Judd from before his death where he speaks of his regrets. Apparently, he regrets everything that he did to Sayako and Ryan. As it turns out, Ryan is Judd's son. Ryan's mother passed in an accident when he was young, and he refused to stop crying. Eventually, Judd gave up, using a formula from his lab to erase his son's memories and handing him over to someone trustworthy to raise the boy. If Judd had a formula for erasing memories in the first place, why the hell did he spend the next decade working on another? He already had a way to erase memories, but apparently it took until after Sayako's death to finish another? Richard and Ashley chase after Ryan, running through a secret underground cavern while breaking for the occasional discussion. Once again, real original. Ryan's apparently really slow, since after our duo leave the cavern, he's only just hopped into a motorboat to escape. Sorry, did I say escape? I meant to say isolate himself on the island, trapping himself in the only place within eyesight that would be counterintuitive to his motives. Literally any other place would have been smarter, Ryan. Richard and Ashley hop into a rowboat, making their way to the island and cornering Ryan. Richard gets Ryan to admit that he was the one who orchestrated Sayako's murder. Bill told Ryan all about his relationship with Judd, so Ryan began manipulating him to cause Judd as much pain as possible. Then, after Bill died, Ryan decided to send the anonymous email about Sayako's killer to summon him to JC Valley. He planned to convince Richard that everything he had done was part of Judd's plan. This would earn his trust. Richard would then help Ryan complete the memory restoration feature in another so that he could sell it. So why didn't he do that? Richard trusted him from the get-go, which for some completely unexplained reason made Ryan decide not to go through with it. Wouldn't Richard being compliant just make the plan run smoothly? Ryan says he doesn't understand why Richard isn't out for revenge right now. Richard has a fairly well-done monologue, talking about the pain that he's been in over these last 13 years, but how he refuses to let his sorrow turn into vengeance, because Sayako wouldn't have wanted that. This is entirely undermined when Ryan hands him the gun and Richard just points it at Ryan. When Ashley convinces Richard not to shoot, Ryan decides to take a nosedive off the cliff behind him. Richard refuses to let him do this, grabbing Ryan and pulling him back up. Real original, implementing a plot point where Richard faces off against the person responsible for his wife's murder before deciding to try and save them as they dangle off the edge of a cliff. Have I said that enough to emphasize that this game heavily borrows from its predecessor? They return to the cottage, Ryan turns himself in for his crimes, and Ashley gets to say goodbye to all of her friends before leaving. She decides to try and take responsibility for her actions and stop being such a jerk, and Matt works with Dan to contact his uncle and return home. It sounds like someone matching his father's description has been conveniently sighted recently, so maybe Matt will get a happier ending. Richard sends Ashley off, promising to come visit soon. The bus takes off, and the credits roll. Another Code R was a deeply flawed game. While its predecessor's story was linear and bland, this one's story was jumbled and nonsensical. There were dozens of plot points that the game spent lots of time establishing, only for them to never be resolved. Stuff like Sophia stealing Ashley's bag and dropping it off in a random spot despite having no motive to do so. The only thing that the stolen bag added to the game was the existence of Ranger Dan being slightly more justifiable than if he were just there to search for Matt, which I think would have been perfectly fine. A more frustrating example was Matt finding his belongings. The only thing that this added to the game was scenes of us getting yelled at and blamed for theft. Sure, it characterized, but what did she do for the plot? If she was removed from the game entirely, the only thing that would have changed was a shortened runtime and slightly less reason to be upset with Rex. This game loves its characters, and many of them are very interesting. Characters like Bob and Tommy were fun to talk to and learn about, and you can tell that the writers were very proud of how much depth there was to these characters. However, I don't think they should have been put in a game like this. This is a science fiction mystery puzzle game, not a slice-of-life visual novel. The amount of dialogue and backstory that these characters get would be perfect in a lower stakes game unrelated to the Another Code property, but in Another Code, it's just way too much. It's long, winding, and a complete waste of time. It makes the overall tone of the game incredibly inconsistent. For a game about unraveling the mysteries involving a murder and a giant conspiracy to cover up the truth behind it, they sure did spend a lot of time having us learn about the intricacies behind Bob's salmon rice burger and his desire to create an online storefront to sell them. The actual gameplay outside of talking with people is very minimal. It's mostly just walking around a map that is way too large with way too much backtracking. The puzzles are very interesting and they utilize the hardware in ways that are just as unique as the original game, but it also suffers from the same fundamental issues as before, where you're only allowed to solve puzzles in the exact order that the developer wants you to. In a relatively open world game with puzzle components scattered all over the place, this is even more of a problem than before. The final few chapters had so many scenes that were borderline carbon copies of the original that I couldn't help but be more and more disappointed as it went on. I don't understand how the writers that made Hotel Dusk and Last Window could churn out something this nonsensical and unpolished. If you want to enjoy a slice-of-life game, play Another Code R and ignore the mystery aspects. If you want to enjoy a mystery game, for the love of everything good in this world, stay away. I had a lot of issues with both of the Another Code games, which makes me very intrigued to play the remake. I heard that many people were upset by some of the changes to the plot, but I'm really looking forward to that. I have no nostalgia to be clouded by. This is my first time playing all of these games. The writing of the original two was deeply flawed, and this remake has a chance to set things right. The game opens to a user authentication screen on the DAS. Just like Another Code R, this game uses the term dual another system, with the memory-altering device being called Another. We see Richard's message about wanting to meet Ashley on her 14th birthday before being sent to the title screen, and just wow. This game is absolutely stunning. Both the 2D and 3D visuals are a gigantic step up from the previous entries in the series. Taisuke Kanasaki came back as the art director for this game, and man, has he improved by leaps and bounds. And his art was already good. After getting the same pointless opening cutscene as before, we cut to Ashley already fully on Blood Edward Island. This opening section acts as kind of a tutorial, although I'm not sure why they did it the way that they did. Ashley is running towards the mansion when she's warned by a glowing orb, presumably D, that rocks are falling from above. She dodges out of the way, then we get a small tutorial puzzle. Another Code Recollection has a very interesting new navigation feature that can often be pretty useful. By pressing in the left stick, this compass will appear around Ashley, pointing exactly where she needs to go to progress the plot. I mainly used this when I was lost and needed to confirm what direction I was supposed to head, but if you leave it on, it will literally show you what items to interact with in what order to solve puzzles. It's crazy. If you're ever stuck, this is your best bet, and it's totally optional, which I appreciate. Unlike the original, the remake plays in third person with an over-the-shoulder camera. The 3D models and environments look incredible, and while I do miss Kanasaki's character art, it still gets displayed pretty frequently. When it comes to controls, the game is fairly solid. I had to increase the camera sensitivity, and I do think the camera is positioned a bit awkwardly, making right stick movement feel just slightly off. But for this first game, that's literally my only control complaint. Our first puzzle involves moving a plank to cross this broken bridge. Very straightforward stuff. I love that they kept the sound effects from the original game whenever you do something like solving a puzzle. Past the rickety bridge, Ashley finds a sign warning that only members of the Edward family are permitted past this point. Ashley feels as though she's being watched by someone, spinning around before the game cuts to black. Only now are we taken to the cutscene on the boat where we really should have started out. I feel as though this tutorial is poorly placed. It would have made more sense to just have the normal opening section before giving that tutorial when the player naturally reached that area on the island. It's not like it's all that far into the plot, and the devs already tried to garner some interest by showing Thomas and Sayako's deaths. Part of me thinks that these odd structural choices may come from the choice in developer. Another code Recollection was developed by Arc System Works, a studio that made a name for themselves by developing fighting games like Guilty Gear and Persona 4 Arena, a stark contrast to the story-driven puzzle game. The remake has full voice acting, and I think the performances are pretty good. Some actors do better than others, but even the worst performances are still perfectly passable. It's really nice to be able to hear the voices for each of the characters. The characters in general have been strongly improved in the remake. Ashley is way less of a snobby brat, and Jessica is nicer and more open. The two speak as they approach the island, and everything is way more condensed and well phrased. Plus, we get to see the new DAS, which of course looks like the Nintendo Switch. They reach the island, and Jessica heads off alone to get Richard, with Ashley eventually following. The puzzles have unfortunately been completely changed from the original, but I do think that is the best decision. You don't have the DS hardware this time around, so things have to be different. But the puzzles also don't really utilize the Switch's hardware in any interesting ways, which is a bit disappointing, but they're still fun and interesting to do. They cut out a lot of unnecessary puzzles and locations, which I think is for the best. For example, there is no tower where we find Jessica's glasses scattered on the floor. Instead, Ashley hears the scream coming from the mansion, finding out that the glasses are sitting outside the main entrance. The gate leading there is locked, which prompts Ashley to run around the side looking for an alternative pathway. This is where our little tutorial took place. This path leads to the graveyard where we solve some more meaningful puzzles instead of just dragging a rock out of the way. We meet D, who looks great, and he explains who he is, just like last time. The duo team up and move to the mansion. The map layouts are so much better in this remake. Instead of having the mansion randomly go backwards in this giant, slightly askew line, we have a normal house layout that you can explore and unlock using keys. The room order is also changed for the better. We don't find the room covered in blood until far later on, and it's treated with the proper amount of respect this time around. There are new collectibles to find scattered about through the form of these paper cranes you can scan with the DAS. Most of them just explore Richard's character more, which I really like, but one in particular is really exciting for me. This crane here details Thomas's career as a novelist and how he found some minor success as a mystery writer while using a pen name. The protagonist's name? Kyle Hyde. That's right, we get another Hotel Dusk reference. I don't think this is an indication that Kyle Hyde is canonically a fictional character, since Thomas died in the 40s and Hotel Dusk takes place in 79. This combined with the photos Gilbert Moss took of the rest of the cast leads me to believe that Kyle Hyde's parents must have just been a fan of Henry's work. You can tell that the devs were Sing fans both because of the Easter eggs like that and because of changes like adding a partially eaten chocolate bar next to Richard's sketches of what he imagines Ashley to look like. That's such a small throwback to the chocolate drawer where the TAS Plus was hidden in another code R, and they turned it into a small reoccurring personality trait for Richard. It's wonderful attention to detail that I really appreciate. Ashley explores the mansion further, finding the photo book as well as other clues that explain the history of Thomas and Henry. We even look through the butler's diary again, learning that his name is Wells. The family tree was a bit confusing to try and explain in the original version, and this game makes things way easier. In the DAS, you have a live updating family tree that adds new information as you learn it. This is a super smart addition, and I really appreciate it. In Henry's room, we find a letter from his wife Marie, with one very unusual difference. In the remake, Henry never drunkenly swung a knife around his wife and child. This may be an attempt to make Henry a more likable character, but I kind of miss this aspect of the story. It shows that he was getting so inebriated that the safety of his family was at stake. It's less impactful to me having Marie leave just because she can no longer see his heart, although it is equally as realistic. After solving an improved version of the original piano puzzle, a box drops from beneath the instrument. Inside, Ashley finds what almost looks to be a game cartridge. The DAS reacts, identifying it as an another key. Finding all three of these another keys will unlock a new feature on the device. As Ashley and Dee ponder this, the door to the music room bursts open. It's Bill, and oh my goodness, they have seriously improved him. He's not cloaked in shadow, and he's not immediately suspicious. He's not an emotionally detached bad liar anymore. He's a competent manipulator who is way more believably a fake Richard. He smiles, he's happy to see her, they actually talk, the whole shebang. He's even entered into the family tree as Richard. He much more realistically convinces Ashley that he's her father, using this new trust to convince her to find the two remaining another keys. He gives a much better explanation as to why the real Richard escaped to Blood Edward Island to do his research. After Sayako's death, Richard realized just how desperate people were to get their hands on another, choosing the isolated lab to keep such a powerful technology from falling into the wrong hands. That's such a strong narrative improvement. There's also a better explanation for them splitting up, with Ashley going off in search of the Another keys while Bill goes to find Jessica. The next Another key is in an entirely new room, the library. You enter first person here, exploring the shadow-cloaked library by candlelight. It's eerie, it's cool, and it's way more interesting than a lot of the areas we explored in the original game. After navigating the dark part, we reach a study-type area with a cool puzzle utilizing invisible ink. This lets Ashley unlock a hidden passageway inside a fireplace where both the second Another key and Dee's shoe are waiting for them. Ashley explores the kitchen, learns about her mother's death, and finds the final Another key in the side of the radio from the original. This puzzle is way better this time around, and it's not full of obnoxiously loud static this time. With all 3 keys acquired, Ashley meets up with Bill in the lobby. His facade partially drops here. He's colder, less sensitive, and very desperate to get her to hand over the keys. He openly prioritizes Another over Jessica's well-being, yelling at Ashley and immediately leaving her once he gets the keys. I think this sets up the reveal that he's Bill a lot better. Ashley is left so hurt that she refuses to consider him her father, even though she believes that they have blood ties. This makes things a lot easier when the real Richard makes his appearance. After having the interaction with Bill, Dee suddenly recalls the death of his father. He finds the room where Thomas was killed, where they both immediately see the bloodstain and take things very seriously. This is a strong improvement from the original. A key to the wine cellar can be found here. The duo decide to check it out, finding Jessica inside, delirious and handcuffed to a pillar. This interaction is a lot more interesting in this version, since Ashley has such a negative impression of her father. Jessica is insistent that Ashley should believe in Richard despite Ashley's current dislike of him. Since she's cuffed this time, Jessica has to remain in the wine cellar, leaving Ashley to find her father on her own. Dee and Ashley head through the courtyard and into Lawrence's room, where they manage to find the entrance to the lab behind 2 secret passageways. Ashley gets frustrated at not finding her father, and Dee gives her the best look in the whole game. He is not having it. He gives her the spiel on how even though finding the truth is scary, it is always worth it. Ashley calls out to her father, and what do you know? Someone behind a nearby security door begins to respond. Richard claims to be her father from the other side of the door, and Ashley is a lot less presumptuous. She humors him and even listens to his instructions to get the door open. As soon as she sees him, she recognizes his face from her childhood memories, leaving no confusion as to who her father is. We even have a contrasting scent. Bill always smelled like cigarettes, even in the original game, but Richard smells like chocolate. That's such a good addition, and it just seems so comforting. Richard looks a lot different in this game, being a brunette, but I kinda dig it. The reunion is a lot more wholesome than the fake one with Bill, although it's interrupted by a headache, most likely from Bill messing with Richard's memories. Nearby, Ashley checks out Richard's laptop, finding messages detailing something kind of insane. Richard used Another to erase Ashley's memories of the night of Sayako's murder. That's why she's been struggling to recall that night for so long. I'm not sure what kind of state Another was in back then, but I'll accept that it was far enough along to remove memories, because I think this is a really cool plot point that makes a lot more sense than the original game. I know Ashley was really young, so her memories would have been fuzzy, but the fact that she has super clear memories from JC Valley kinda contradicts that fact, making this explanation even better. Plus, if it was an early prototype of Another, that could explain why she's able to regain these memories by seeing familiar sights like her father's face. It wasn't far enough along in development to ensure that she wouldn't be able to get those memories back. Richard, Dee, and Ashley enter the room where Another is. This design is way cooler than the original one. Richard quickly notices that Bill is using a nearby computer with the Another keys to transfer Another's source code to an unknown recipient. Thankfully, Richard built in a failsafe to prevent this from happening, giving us a wonderful Bill reaction image. A very pissed off Bill begins to speak to Richard over the loudspeaker, and we get the same backstory executed in a much more convincing way. In the original, Bill made it clear that he believes that someone would only create Another for selfish purposes, and that he wants to use it that way himself. In the remake, it's much more antagonistic. He explains very clearly that he believes that Richard and Sayako are both liars who were putting on a saint act the entire time. They don't fully grasp the potential of Another. He plans to sell it, making both of them filthy rich. All Richard needs to do is join him. Richard obviously rejects this offer, prompting the same series of events as the original, without all the half-baked technobabble with colored cards. Bill claims that Richard killed Sayako, but Ashley uses Another with a special feature on the dash Das to prove that he's innocent. The plot is a little bit shaky, but it's still undoubtedly an improvement. Richard decides that despite all its potential benefits, another is just too dangerous to exist. He uses the Das to destroy it. I think this is a way better ending than the original version. Another being destroyed is a gigantic sacrifice for Richard. Not only does this show that he's a good man with honest intentions, it also acts as a way of cementing his newfound dedication to his family. The project is gone, even after 10 years, and now the most important thing in his life can become a priority again. Richard, Dee, and Ashley all head into the cavern connected to the lab, coming face to face with Bill and his gun. Seeing him pointing a weapon around brings back her final memory of Sayako's murder. They put it in this kind of quiz format, like what used to happen at the end of each chapter, and it's kind of ridiculous, honestly. Who killed Sayako? Her husband, who was just proved innocent, her sister-in-law who has no connection to another, 3 people who died over 50 years before Sayako was murdered, or Bill McEvilpants and his boom boom stick. Yeah, I think I'm gonna place my bet on Bill. Instead of having a verbal final battle, Bill just full-on tries to murder Ashley. Dematerializes in front of him, startling him off the cliff just like in the original. It's still never really explained how he can see Dee all of a sudden though, so that's kinda disappointing. Richard can tell that Ashley is tired, telling her to wait in place while he brings Jessica back with him. Then they can all leave together. Ashley talks to Dee, learning the full truth behind his death. It looks pretty good in the remake, and we get a full scene showing what happened. I like how we get to see how Dee looked when he was still alive. A noise from Bill's laptop draws the duo near. They can see that the source code transfer was complete, and someone has joined the chat room. JC Valley 0013. This must be Ryan. He claims to have gotten the data, but when Bill doesn't respond to any of his messages, he quickly leaves the chat room. Next to the laptop is a photo of Bill and his mother, Frannie. I love that we finally get a full confirmation that Frannie was his mom. Richard finally returns with Jessica, and the group all head outside. They wait for the captain together, and when he arrives, things are almost exactly the same. The captain's able to see Dee, and Ashley gives a tearful goodbye to her new friend. But this time, as Dee is passing on, he ascends into his father's arms. I swear, my heart melted during this version. It was so sweet. Richard walks up to Ashley, wishing her a happy birthday, and giving her a gift, Sayako's pendant. I think this is a much better introduction of this item. Instead of just retconning the pendant into existence, it's a thoughtful gift that Richard was holding on to for all these years. The next day, Ashley got to properly celebrate her birthday, receiving the iconic teddy bear. The remake of Two Memories was a substantial step up from the original DS version. While I'm a bit sad that we had to say goodbye to the unique puzzles from the original, I think it was completely worth it. The story was strongly improved, the characters were more likable, the dialogue felt smoother, the 3D models look incredible, and the 2D illustrations somehow look even better. Even the gameplay was better in just about every way. Puzzles often allowed you to pick up items of interest when they were first visible, even though you didn't know exactly where to use them yet, and navigation through the newly designed environments was so much more logical. Backtracking wasn't tedious since the house isn't just a big wonky line, and the hint compass helped to point me in the right direction if I was ever feeling lost. I seriously don't think they could have made a better remake without putting the game on like the 3DS or something and implementing the unique puzzles again. But even so, the new puzzles they included were very enjoyable. Plus, they tied in the second game so smoothly this time around. I'm very excited to see what they did for A Journey into Lost Memories. Most news outlets were reporting that this one had the largest changes to the story, so if they can improve it by the same amount that they improved the original story, I have really high hopes. Just like in the original, A Journey into Lost Memories starts out with Ashley on a bus bound towards Lake Juliet. She was reunited with Richard, but he started acting weird and then he took up this job and slowly stopped visiting. That's all the same, but things quickly get pretty different. Firstly, Matthew is the one who steals Ashley's bag. I'm calling him Matthew instead of Matt because this time around, Ashley doesn't start calling him a nickname without asking permission first. While most of the characters in the first game went through slight design changes, the majority of the cast is dramatically redesigned in the second. Matthew actually looks like a 13-year-old, which much more effectively sets him apart from Dee. All the teens like Tommy and look less like the cast of a Disney original TV movie and more like actual people. Characters like Dan have the most dramatic changes. He's no longer a big huggable teddy bear, but he's just as friendly looking, and he has a physique that closer matches his occupation. Per usual, all of the puzzles are very different, and the layouts are streamlined. It's way easier to navigate Lake Juliet this time around, and we actually get a puzzle for getting Tommy out from the break room to help us sign in. The barbecue is no longer just an awkward family event, with Richard inviting all of his coworkers. This is a much easier way of introducing introducing the cast, and it prevents the stupid bait and switch with Sophia pretending to be Gina. Instead of Ashley being upset with Richard for being inattentive and unprepared, we go full into the inattentive part. Things are awkward since she doesn't know anyone. Ashley still has her memories about coming here with Sayako when she was 2, but this time around Richard knows about the trip already. Sayako didn't tell him about it though, he found out on his own. He's open about the fact that he took the job here because he thinks it will reveal the truth behind her death, which lessens the father-daughter tension. They add tons of small layers to the story and characters here, like making Lake Juliet a special place to Richard because it's where he proposed. The TAS no longer exists in this version, instead being the Reboot Another System, or RAS. It's a bracelet that quickly Ben tends itself onto Ashley's wrist, biometrically authenticating her and connecting her to the DAS. It has the same abilities to unlock doors as before, this time acting as a way to connect the DAS to the lock. The puzzles are very similar, requiring you to follow the prompts on screen, and for the most part it works pretty well. The only prompt I ever had issues with was this one, where you have to rotate the stick. For some reason, each turn only registers when you move the stick around 1 1/8 times, which was very confusing and caused a lot of unlock failures. I bullied Richard a lot for being an awful father in the original, and they really improved him here. Ashley too. When they realize the charcoal is gone, this time it's not because Richard forgot to buy it, it's because Tommy forgot to deliver it, and Ashley offers to go get it herself. She doesn't do this in a spiteful way, she does it because she figures it's less awkward for him to be around his work friends instead of her doing awkward introductions with them. Matthew steals the food like before, Tommy accuses Ashley of theft, and she goes through a much longer investigation to prove her innocence. When she gets back, Mike tells her that Richard had to get back to the lab because of an emergency. I say Mike, but his name was actually changed to Ian, which I have to admit is a much better fit. Ashley overhears Tommy talking with and Janet, revealing quite a bit. First of all, Janet has had a glow up. Second of all, she's the band's drummer, as Sam has been written completely out of existence. There's no longer any school connection between Ashley and Janet, they ended up just fusing Janet and Sam. Third, the music player is still missing, but this time it contains their demo tape for the band contest. I'm not really sure why they need a demo tape since it's a live performance, but maybe it's for registration or something? Or maybe they've just changed how the band contest works. As Ashley listens to all of this, she's approached by a much more stylish Ryan, who just casually walks out of the woods. Ryan is way more open about the fact that he met Ashley 13 years ago, and he even talks through the science of flashbacks with her. Dan shows up with a photo of Matthew, and Ashley confirms that he's the one who stole her bag. Ian realizes that Richard forgot his hat and tasks Ashley with bringing it to his cottage. On the way over, Ashley runs into Tommy and again. She introduces herself to who is somehow even worse than before? More stuck up, more obnoxious, and just a total douche. She's morphed from someone who gives backhanded compliments into someone who will insult you to your face completely unprompted. Ashley wants to help look for the music player, but just starts yelling at her and making veiled threats about her father being Richard's boss. Ashley leaves and the camera lingers back, with Tommy making it very clear how not okay her behavior was. Actually apologizes here. Maybe she's gonna have a better character arc this time around. Ashley keeps walking around, running into Matthew and chasing him. He gets himself trapped in the well again, but this time it's less of a weirdly small box that he's crouched in and more of an actual pit. It's thankfully empty, and Ashley is able to help him out by tossing down a rope. He goes through his kidnapped rich dad lie again, and you aren't even given an option to believe him. He books it without telling Ashley where her bag is, so she chases after him, running into Tommy and Janet instead. They apologize for and Ashley actually maturely brushes things off, which is really cool. I respect that. She finds Matt ducking around near the boathouse. Apparently, after he ran off, he realized he should give her bag back, but it isn't where he hid it. They give their backstories for real this time, break into the boathouse, and retrieve Michael's suitcase from the lake using an RC boat. It has the water testing kit, a floppy disk, and this time, Kelly's rabbit. Dan hears them rustling about, so Matthew hides and Ashley deflects, learning more about Crusoe Resort. Matthew escapes and moves to Gilbert Moss's old house, where Ashley meets back up with him. The photos on the wall are mostly unchanged from the original, with the only big difference being that the photo of Richard and Sayako has been replaced with one of the Crusoes. We get the spiel on the boarding school before the two run into who accuses Matthew's family of the pollution. He gets upset and tells her she has no evidence before running off. He explains later on that he's missing memories surrounding the day that his dad left, prompting Ashley to make a connection. What if he's like Dee? What if he's missing memories because of a traumatic event? I really like this connection. It makes the character similarities feel intentional instead of like the result of writers running out of ideas. They run into Greg by the clock tower, and this time his cover is that he's a special agent, which I kinda like. Our duo head off to the cottage, where Richard has apparently returned returned without warning. He immediately recognizes Matthew by name despite Ashley's poor attempts at lying. Thankfully, he has no intention of turning him in. He's empathetic, having run away from home himself as a child, and he wants to hear Matthew's side of the story. It's incredibly sweet, and so much better than the nonsense from the last game. Richard hears him out entirely, wishing him the best with finding his father and agreeing to help where he can. Right on cue, he gets a call about more trouble at the lab. They use his computer to read the floppy disk, learning about Michael Crusoe's innocence. Unfortunately, the data seems to be partially corrupted. After reading the file, they decide to head to the mermaid statue to do a water analysis with the DAS. On the way over, they spot Bob putting up a poster for the salmon rice burger. Bob is just as nice in this version, and substantially more stylish. They agree to get some SRBs after the tests, heading toward the statue and learning that the pollution is caused by an unknown contaminant. They walk back towards the restaurant, overhearing Greg's conversation with Ian. Greg bolts, Matthew chases, and we end up in the garden getting yelled at by a slightly less grouchy old lady. They head to Bob's for some SRBs, stumbling into band practice. I say band practice, but it's really Jeanette air drumming while Tommy shreds on a guitar that isn't even plugged in. Never showed up, so they get to talking with Ashley, asking her to play with them. She doesn't know the song, but she plays along just fine, purely by ear. Nah, I'm just kidding. She isn't plugged in either. Bob returns whipping up 3 SRBs, 2 for Matthew because he's a teenage boy with a metabolism I can only dream of. While waiting for him to finish a second burger, Ashley takes a look at some of the photos on the wall, learning that Rex, Richard, and Bob are all good friends. They even play music together. Not only that, we get full confirmation of Bob's relationship with Cliff. They're brothers. They head back to Richard's house, and Ashley is stopped by Ryan, who calls her over to his cottage. He confirms that the pollution accusations against Crusoe Resort are entirely untrue, but he doesn't elaborate at all. Ashley heads back to Richard's cottage to check on Matthew, but is cut off by Janet and Tommy, who are about to confront about missing band practice. They strong-arm Ashley into helping out for some reason, and the group heads off into the land of ye olden rich snob. Inside, his behavior has become word-for-word levels of predictable.
What is she doing here?
What's she doing here?
I told you.
Rex stops their squabbling, and Tommy starts trying to interrogate her more. Janet drags Ashley to his room, and she knocks over a music box. This technically happened last time, but it was so inconsequential that I just skipped over it. We get a minigame for repairing the thing before finding a secret compartment with a supposedly missing music player. Didn't lose the player. She was hiding it. After screaming at Tommy, she heads upstairs and kicks Ashley and Janet out too. Rex apologizes on her behalf, and the group heads out. Ashley hands over the music player, learning that during Tommy's conversations, claimed that she hates singing and is a bad singer. Ashley listens to the song and disagrees, but we don't get to hear anything. Back at the cottage, Matthew is nowhere to be seen. He appears to have gone through his dad's suitcase, finding photos of Michael and Greg at the mermaid statue. In the background, Charlotte and Greg can be seen talking. Ashley sprints to Charlotte's house, finding that she and Matthew have been busy catching up. Charlotte really is a lot nicer this time around. Just like last time, she points us in the right direction to finding some of the keys to the clock tower. There are brand new puzzles, some of which were pretty challenging, like this motion control tilting box one. One of the puzzles reveals a letter left for Charlotte by her daughter Olivia, where we learn that part of the reason that she left was because she was pregnant. She insisted on getting a fresh start so the kid could grow up in a happy home. Damn. Charlotte takes this shockingly well, admitting that she was wrong and promising to contact her daughter. With that done, Ashley and Matthew unlock the clock tower door. As the two work towards fixing the clock tower, Matthew reminisces about coming here with Kelly. Once it's back up and running, the sound of the bell brings back all of his memories. Matthew sprints away, presumably to his dad's office, with the ghost of Kelly watching over him. Ashley runs off looking for him, running into She wants to talk, and Ashley agrees. We learn that Rex is planning to marry Sophia, but doesn't believe that she actually loves him. She joined the band contest to get her mind off things, but it didn't end up helping as much as she'd hoped. Ashley tells her she thinks they can win, but has been comparing her voice to that of her mother, who's a professional singer, hence the drop in confidence. They talk for a while and actually get along. She doesn't apologize, but Elizabeth's improvement in behavior is enough to justify returning her name to her. For now, at least. Ashley asks Elizabeth if she knows where Michael's work building is. She directs Ashley past JC Valley, and sure enough, there we find Matthew. The two look around for more ways to jog his memories, locating a paper revealing Greg Davis's status as a reporter. Nearby is Michael's locker, containing a letter from his wife. It's a final request to support Matthew after the trauma of Kelly's death. This letter is enough to fully jog the memories. Kelly's death is very different this time around, with the girl having fallen from the top of the clock tower. I find this a lot more believable than the death in the lake. Matthew could have saved her from drowning, but he couldn't have saved her from falling. Matthew wishes he could apologize to Kelly for not being able to save her, prompting her ghost to materialize. She doesn't blame him in the slightest. After their reconciliation, the spirit of their mother appears. Kelly runs into her arms, and both move on to whatever awaits them on the other side. Ashley gives Matthew a hug, encouraging him not to hold back his tears. I have to say, this has been the largest improvement out of either remake. Rewriting Kelly's death was smart, and allowing Matthew to have a real conversation with her before seeing her depart to a happier place with her mother was genuinely really touching. The voice acting in this game has been fairly inconsistent, but I'm really impressed by Tariq Talati's performance as Matthew. He knocked it out of the park. Also, I'm so sorry if I said your name wrong. Greg enters the room, revealing that he'd been listening in. With his memories intact, Matthew remembers him now. Greg was unable to get into Michael's locker, but now that we have it open, the group finds a hefty box of papers, with evidence that the cause of the pollution was JC Valley, not Crusoe Resort. Greg reveals why Michael went missing. He couldn't bear to see his son until he had the money to re-establish the company, and his innocence. Unfortunately, there was an accident at the construction job he took in the meantime. Michael is alive, but he's in a coma. Literally 2 seconds later, Greg gets a call that Michael finally woke up. This is really convenient timing, and it makes the whole coma reveal feel cheap. In less than a minute, we learn about the coma and then remove it as a plot point. I believe this was done to give Greg an excuse to remove Matthew from the situation, as both of them immediately head for the hospital, leaving Ashley behind. As soon as they leave, Ryan appears, claiming that Richard is worried about her. They head to the lab, where Ryan promptly vanishes without a trace. Ashley presses the elevator button, finding herself face to face with Sophia. Sophia agrees to guide Ashley down to Richard's office before chloroforming her. Elsewhere, Richard and Gina learn that Sophia has been leaking information after looking through some security logs. Ashley wakes up in a darkened lab, finding information on liquid memory. There's a lot more to learn this time around. Apparently, liquid memory requires the unique composition of water found in Lake Juliet, preventing it from being manufactured in mass. Not only that, the unknown contaminant found to be polluting the lake is liquid memory. That is so much cooler than the original explanation. Ashley breaks herself out of the room with the RAS, sneaking off to look for help. You can break into Ryan's old office here, finding his laptop containing evidence that he was the one that Bill was messaging during the first game. Down the hallway, Ashley hears some noise nearby. Gina casually pulls Ashley into Rex's office in the most kidnappy way possible, where they eventually exchange information about Sophia. Gina is confused when Ashley mentions Ryan, implying that no one using that name works here. That's really weird. I mean, we were just in his office. Gina calls Ian, finding that he's been attacked as well, and rushing off to help him. Ashley stays behind, looking through documents and learning that Richard is here to help with a new version of liquid memory after a spill 6 years ago that severely polluted the lake. Ryan calls the office looking for Rex, learning about Ashley's assault. He claims that Sophia must be trying to acquire another source code, promising to look into her actions. Ashley grows impatient, waiting for Gina, leaving the room and finding that she's moved like 10 feet. The security gate is locked, so Ashley uses the RAS. They unlock Sophia's office, looking for clues, only for Ashley to find her freaking bag just shoved in a trash can. Literally no attempt to hide it whatsoever. They never explain why Sophia stole it, which is still really frustrating to me. But hey, at least we see that Ashley has a band demo for the contest too. They head for the elevator, but Sophia finds them, shooting Gina. It was barely a hit, but still, oh my god. Gina presses the emergency stop button in the elevator, trapping Sophia. They reach Ian, waking him and finding that Richard never managed to meet up with him. Ashley leaves with Ian, hoping to find Richard. As he works to unlock another security gate, Ashley asks about the pollution and Greg Davis. Ian decides to trust her, revealing that he is a freaking secret agent. He and Greg have been helping each other out. He infiltrated JC Valley to see if their memory research could be weaponized. Oh my god. They reach the security room, teaming up to lock Sophia in her office. They find Richard on the security feed for the lab where Ashley woke up. Ashley books it down there to help him, using the RAS to unlock his handcuffs. Richard, just like Gina, has also never heard of the Ryan that supposedly works here. He reveals that Ryan is probably Sophia's accomplice. Ever since Bill sent out the source code, Richard has been trying to find it, and that's one of the reasons he took the job. He needed to know who Bill was working with, and the only lead he could find was the name Ryan. He takes her back to his office, where he grabs prototype plans for another from 15 years ago. Syankora worked on this original version, but it had a fatal flaw that caused the project to be shelved. Ashley gets a flashback revealing that director Judd called her here 13 years ago because of something relating to the scrapped prototype Another. Their conversation is interrupted by Sophia and her massive big brain hacker skills with a convenient little progress bar that Richard can see for some reason. Richard moves the Another source code to a disk, deleting it from JC Valley's servers. Ryan appears in Sophia's locked room somehow, informing her that Richard and Ashley are moving for the exit with the source code. They reconvene with Gina and Ian, finding that Sophia somehow escaped the room. Richard and Ashley Ashley move to the exit, asking the others to stay behind, but before they can actually escape, Gina and her little friend Mr. Pew Pew show up to ruin everything. She demands that they hand over the disc with the source code, but Ashley hands over her demo disc instead. This fools her just long enough for Richard to take her by surprise, knocking the gun from her hand. Ashley runs outside looking for help, but the elevator shuts down. Ryan's voice comes on over the speakers, claiming that he's been waiting for her. We cut to Richard getting his ass kicked by Sophia, only to be saved by Rex. I guess the wedding is off, huh? The elevator splits Ashley out in the room with the prototype another. Ryan steps out from behind the machine, claiming that he was the mastermind manipulating both Sophia and Bill. He tells her to look into his eyes before using, I don't know, psychic mind powers to knock her out and place her in another. He claims that he'll introduce her to Sayako with the camera panning to the another control panel. Ashley's pendant is inserted into the center. Richard and Rex find that the elevator is parked on the non-existent basement 5 level. Rex reveals that this floor contains JC Valley's secret lab, and they head down. Inside, Ashley is unconscious inside of the another, but Ryan is nowhere to be seen. Rex gives us the whole spiel about Judd taking Sayako's memories. Rex realizes that the prototype another is being used to rewrite Ashley's memories with Sayako's memories, effectively reviving her in exchange for destroying Ashley's own memories. Ryan is watching over Ashley, but nobody seems to be able to see him. We cut into Ashley's mind, where she is surrounded by all of her memories, as well as many of Sayako's. She walks around, finding herself face to face with her mother. This is a full reconstruction of Sayako using her memories, meaning Ashley is able to tearfully reunite with her own mother for the first time in 13 years. As much as it would be nice to catch up, they don't have the time. Sayako insists that Ashley is in danger, and she needs to combat Ryan's attempts at switching their memories. She won't let her daughter be erased. They work together to erase all of Sayako's memories using a feature built into the RAS, which you think would be easy, but their format makes it kinda confusing. Some of the memories are in first person and some are in third person. While this memory of Sayako smiling is in first person from Ashley's perspective, this memory of Sayako looking at a computer is in third person from Sayako's perspective. This memory could realistically be Ashley's during their visit to Lake Juliet 13 years ago. I really wish they thought through the formatting just a little bit more. As Ashley deletes the last of her mother's memories, Sayako bids her goodbye with some parting wisdom. A person experiences 2 deaths. 1, when their soul leaves their body, and 2, when memories of that person fade from everyone's hearts. As long as Ashley keeps her in her heart, they will always be together. They hug one final time before Ashley returns to consciousness. Ryan welcomes Sayako back, only for Ashley to correct him. She passes along Sayako's thoughts, and he takes it pretty well, all things considered. He once again just kind of vanishes before her eyes. Ashley asks Richard and Rex about Ryan. Man, a lot of R names there. But Rex claims that this is impossible. He takes the Robins back to his office, showing them an old photo of Judd Fitzgerald and his son Ryan. Ryan is still Judd's son, all grown up. Unfortunately, in the remake, this is impossible. Just like in the original version, Ryan suffered serious trauma at the loss of his mother. She saved him, pushing him out of the way of a reckless driver. He was traumatized and he shut down completely, with Judd growing so desperate to help that he used the prototype another without performing enough testing. And in this version, it killed Ryan. He's been dead for 15 years with only his liquid memory remaining. 10 years later, Judd passed away and Rex was placed in charge. He went through all the confidential files at JC Valley, finding a document detailing the 2002 mass simultaneous memory rewrite experiment. Judd created a version of another that was capable of remote control, installing it into the JC Valley security systems and attempting to see if he could rewrite the memories of dozens of people at once. Judd Fitzgerald replaced the memories of every single resident in Lake Juliet, convincing them that the liquid memory pollution in the lake was all because of Crusoe Resort. This is absolutely insane, and it's a much better method of blaming Crusoe Resort. It seems as though the writers realized that everybody just kind of started blaming Michael for no reason in the original, so they created an explanation for why this was the case. Rex explains that he was the one to put Sayako's memories inside the pendant. He disagreed with everything that Judd had done, and he wanted Sayako to have her memories back, even if they weren't in her head anymore. The comm system rings, with Ian and Gina confirming that they took control of the system and captured Sophia. Richard asks Ian to go through the security footage for each location that Ashley met with Ryan. When we look through it, Ashley sees nothing. She was literally talking to dead air. The Ryan Fitzgerald that Ashley met is not real. He's a construct built by the remote control another installed within JC Valley's security systems. Ashley's memories were being overwritten in real time to contain falsified memories of communicating with Ryan. Richard shows off his intelligence here, and I really love it. He starts dissecting this information and learning the truth in seconds. This construct had an established personality personality, and it was specifically seeking out Ashley, making it seem as though Ryan's memory data is still alive and well. Just like how Sayako's memories allowed mother and daughter to reunite, Ryan's memories allowed Ryan to move out of the security system and interact with Ashley. Gina interrupts. One of the security cameras finally went back online, and it's showing a gravestone. Ryan's gravestone. He must be calling Ashley to this location. Richard and Ashley make their way there, boating over and finding Ryan's spot of resting. Judd may have been a truly evil man, but he chose a beautiful final resting place for his son, the spring that acts as the source of Lake Juliet. As long as the spring is here, the pollution in Lake Juliet will always be flushed away. As they reach the grave, Ashley experiences another memory. Sayako's final words to Ryan's grave. Judd left his most precious possession with you, so I'll leave mine here too. She left Ryan's kaleidoscope here, but Judd's possession is nowhere to be seen. The pattern on the kaleidoscope can be adjusted, creating a word, love. The message on the grave is made up of a bunch of buttons, and spelling the word love with them reveals a locket with a picture of Ryan inside. Richard begins to ponder Judd's actions. How could he steal Sayako's memories of Ashley's birth when his most treasured memories are that of his son? But all of a sudden, he stops moving, slumping over. Ryan appears. When Ryan disappeared from the another control room, he attempted to remove all memories of himself from Ashley's mind. Clearly he failed. Richard slumped over because Ryan suspended his consciousness. I suppose if another can mess with people's memories, it's not that much of a stretch to imagine that it can halt a consciousness as part of that procedure. That would explain how he knocked Ashley out, but not how he got the pendant into the control panel. Ryan decides to explain everything to Ashley. He considers himself to be a different being than the original Ryan. A being constructed from memories. Sayako was the first person to notice that the memory seemed to be conscious. She tried to tell Judd, but he refused to believe her. He began attempting to overwrite other people's memories with those of Ryan in an attempt to bring his son back, but their genetic material was just too different. It could work with mother and daughter, but not with complete strangers. He eventually accepted failure, sealing the lab. 6 years ago, a horrible storm tore through JC Valley. The tanks storing liquid memory were damaged, leaking into the lake and polluting it. The combined memories of Ryan and all the subjects who Judd tried to revive him through became a part of the lake. To Ryan, it felt as though the lake had become his brain. With his data more free than ever, he accessed JC Valley's network, learning of Sayako's death. He learned that Sayako may have been killed by Bill, but the order was given by Judd. As the remote another was developed, Ryan used it to speak with Judd, asking why Sayako had to die. Judd never answered. Ryan began contemplating his own existence, trying to find a purpose. He manipulated Bill into giving him the source code, using it to complete the prototype himself. That's why it worked in the basement without killing Ashley. He did it all to prove that he was real, that he had a purpose. With no purpose left, and his life dwindling away as the spring cleansed the lake, all Ryan wanted to do was see Sayako one last time. That's why he tried to replace Ashley. Ryan tries to erase Ashley's memories of him, but before he can, a message appears on the RAS. Remember you. A message from Sayako. It's just like she said. Ryan may have died 15 years ago, but as long as his memories are still in people's hearts, he will live on. Because Ryan remembers Sayako, Sayako lives on, and now Ashley will remember Ryan, so Ryan can live on. Ryan declares that he can finally be at peace, touching the RAS and disappearing. Then, Richard wakes up and Ashley tells him everything. They spend the night at the lab before heading back to the cottage. Jessica grew worried and made her way to Lake Juliet, giving them a good scolding for worrying her. They keep defending each other and trying to shoulder the blame, making Jessica happy that they're finally getting along. Ashley heads for the bus, saying goodbye to her father. Richard promises to see her more often, handing over Sayako's pendant. We get to say goodbye to everyone, including Rex. I love when games do this. It's a really great way to do an epilogue. You can talk with all the people that you care about and ignore the people that you don't. I ended up talking to everybody I could find though. The most impactful one for me was Elizabeth. Elizabeth ended up being able to talk with her dad about everything, and she even gets Matthew's contact information so she can apologize to him about her behavior. She and Ashley agree to meet at the band contest. The end credits show us everyone's happy endings, including Matthew reuniting with his dad. It's really sweet. Another Code Recollection was everything I ever could have hoped for in a remake. With how sketchy the first two games were, I was really hoping they would fix things up, and they certainly did. Visually, Recollection is gorgeous. The models look amazing, the illustrations are beautiful, and the environments are wonderful. Everything was so much easier to navigate and so much more aesthetically pleasing. While the puzzles admittedly were not as cool, that makes sense. They had different hardware, and there's only so much that you can do with a Nintendo Switch. It is a bit sad that they didn't do anything with like taking the Joy-Cons out of the side, but admittedly not everybody is going to be playing in handheld mode. With this in mind, I think they implemented puzzles perfectly by making sure the player was able to solve everything in both docked and handheld mode while keeping things interesting. The story was improved by a landslide. It's not perfect by any means, and there are still some plot holes, but it's so much better that I'm still really satisfied with how they handled it. Some stuff didn't make sense in either version, like why Sophia robbed Ashley, but the other stuff was insanely well thought out, like Ryan's cottage being completely empty because he literally didn't exist. I can't in good faith recommend the original games to people without having a lengthy conversation beforehand to make sure it would be up their alley, but I can without a doubt recommend Recollection to people with no qualms. The visuals, puzzles, story, music, and overall gameplay were masterfully improved. I can't see myself going back to Trace Memory or Another Code R, but I will absolutely be returning to play Another Code Recollection. I hope to see you all again. Have a great rest of your day.